it's not as lovely as it could be, and clearly a lot of you've got a lot of other stuff on your plate. So the fact that you've taken the opportunity and the time and made the effort to come here is fantastic, and it's really massively appreciated by all the people who have organised it. My name's Rob Smith, and I'm just going to be sort of acting as a kind of MC for the day effectively, but the people who you really want to be listening to will be the ones who are up on the front here as we go through the day. There's not very much housekeeping to run through before we get going. There's no fire alarms are planned, so if one does go off, then we'll all have to go out. There's a fire exit over there, obviously, so we'll just make our way outside there. There's another one there if things really kick off. I don't think it will be needed. The loos are through there, and also if you get the opportunity during the course of today to go through to the other side, we've got a couple of stalls that are set up, which have got loads of information and leaflets and things from both the organisers of today and from the County Council and from one of the care provider teams, isn't it? It's the name's escaping for a moment.
I can't help you. I haven't been out there. I'm sorry.
So if you want to go through, have a chat with them during the course of the breaks and you know, pick their brains, get some information from them, it's really worthwhile. I'm not really going to talk for any length of time at all, other than to say I did have a look at, and it's estimated there's something like 5.8 million carers in the UK at the moment. There's an awful lot of people who are doing what you have to do, and yet millions of those carers think they're completely on their own and are struggling away doing the stuff that they're doing. The point of today is to try and let you know that you're not completely on your own. This is an opportunity for you to meet each other and to chat and to share experiences and to get advice and to get help and, crucially, to make your voice heard to some of the influential people who will hopefully take back the information that you're giving to them to then shape services going forward. That's the idea. It's a two-way process, but probably the most important thing is that you get the chance to actually have a chat with each other. So take advantage of that. There's going to be plenty of breaks during the day. There's tea and coffee. There's even custard creams available. So make sure you take advantage of that. And I'll hand over now to Jill, who is the CEO of Carer Support East Kent.
Good morning, everybody. Can you all hear me without a microphone?
Yes.
Fantastic, because they're not my favourite things, but I will use one if you need me to. So as Rob said, welcome to this day of connections. Connecting with each other, connecting with us, Carer Support East Kent, connecting with some of the local and national providers of health and care, and I'm really delighted to have Carers Trust and Carers UK here today, who are both national charities to support carers. So you might not know this, but we are actually 24 years old this year, so our charity, so we'll be planning a 25th anniversary next year. Our charity has been working with carers in East Kent for all of those years. And in that time, we have seen some improvements in terms of recognition of what carers do. And we hear firsthand every day about the challenges that you all experience. There are also some backward steps, maybe, in terms of sort of national policy and national issues that affect carers, and that's why we were particularly keen to have Carers Trust and Carers UK here today, so that they can share with you some of the things that they do on a national level, and then to think about how your voices feed in through us and through their own mechanisms to help shape some of that national policy. So in recent years we've seen things like the Carers Leave Act come to fruition, a week's unpaid time off. Next, I'm sure, the campaigning, and I'll leave it to those who it's their subject matter expertise, but next the campaigning will be for paid carers leave, I'm very sure. So it's really important for us, both as a local charity, to hear the things that you're experiencing, the things that go well, the things that are really difficult for you, and then for the people within the system, my colleagues that are here with us today, to help us to do what we can to shape services going forward. So I thank you for your time today. Rob, you mentioned the volume of carers in the UK. We know that in East Kent there are at least 60,000 carers, and that's just census figures. So probably we could double, maybe even triple that for people that don't use that term to describe what they do and wouldn't have ticked a box on a census form. We've got colleagues, I'm looking at my colleague Karen from the East Kent Hospitals University Trust, who you'll hear from later this afternoon. 1 in 3 NHS employees are carers themselves. And a lot of the work that we do is not just directly in terms of providing information and support to yourselves, it's also about working with system partners around how they support their employees. So it's very broad. We've got our fantastic carer advisory group here today who have been absolutely instrumental in co-designing the agenda for today, and you're going to hear from them very shortly. And I hope that each and every one of you will take something from today. We've got our colleagues from Kent County Council, thank you very much, it's lovely to see you. One of the services that we deliver on behalf of Kent County Council is called the Community Navigation for Carer Service. That's information and support and carer assessment and a range of other things, and I know Janice is going to speak a little bit later about sort of future plans for those services. We have a range of other support and services that we offer. We have something called Carer Money Matters, which I can see is going to be shared later. We have a new service that's working with parent carers. We have something called Time for Me, which is around breaks for carers, and that comes from various different pots of grant funding, and then depending on what the grant funders are willing for us to use that funds for, then we can offer various different things to you. And we had a really successful sort of micro grant programme last year that some of you in the room might have benefited from. We're also always looking as a charity, like all services, to diversify ways to bring in income, and one of the new ways that we're going to be doing that this year is by opening a charity shop. It's just in the offing at the moment, and that's going to be in Whitstable, and that's going to help us generate much needed funds to help us cover our ever increasing costs so that we can continue to do the things that we want to do. So it's an exciting year for Carer Support East Kent. But most importantly, what we want to hear is from you, what are the things that are important to you, and that's really the shape of today. So without further ado, I wish you all a pleasant day, and I'm going to hand over to Sue, who is the chair of our Care Advisory Group.
Can you all hear me? Got the thumbs up at the back. Good. Welcome everybody. It is absolutely delightful to look round the hall this morning and see so many faces. Some familiar faces, but a lot who aren't. But by the end of the day, I hope we'll all be friends, and I hope you will have had the opportunity as well to meet up with new carers that you didn't know before, and also get the opportunity to find out information from all the people who are running the stands, all the experts here. If they've got a sash on, they are an expert. I'm not saying we're not, we are. You're all experts in your own field, but anybody who's got a sash on is just waiting for you to talk to. So, without more ado, let's get going. My role is, at the moment, advisory group, Carers Advisory Group Chairman. I'm going to talk about that first, but I'd just like to say a big thank you to Jill, who has actually set the scene this morning quite nicely. She's given you some facts and figures. She's given you a little prompt about the services that carers support provide. And that actually is sort of a nice introduction for me, because I can tell you a lot more, I hope, about the Carers Advisory Group. So without more ado, thanks to Jill, and off we go. Let me tell you a little bit about myself and my history. Until a year ago, I was a full-time carer as well for my husband. He had a rare sort of dementia, which was quite difficult to deal with because he was non-verbal, and that leads to a very, very lonely, isolated life. Although you're living with them, they can't respond back to you. I knew he understood what I was talking about most of the time, but there was nothing coming back. So when I hear carers say that I feel lonely, I feel isolated, I feel on my own, I just want somebody to listen to me, to be a pair of hearing ears, if you like. I know what that's like. Sadly, he died last year, By then I was already doing the role of chairing the carers advisory group. So I felt that I had still quite a bit of knowledge and expertise, if you like, if you can call it that, to continue in the role, and I'm so pleased to have. I moved down to Kent in 2021 from Hertfordshire. At that point, I hadn't sort of engaged with any organisations in the local area. And having done the move, I felt quite, well, extra isolated, if you like, and thought, right, it's time I get to know what is available in the local area. Where do you start? Local council, maybe. I sort of fumbled around, and through a friend, I got the details of Dementia UK. When I phoned them, the first thing they said, have you heard about these carers support East Kent? So I said, no, where are they based? Oh, etc., etc. And so it went from there. Now that was the time as well that COVID had just sort of come to an end. Things were not quite back in place at the time. There were no face-to-face carers group meetings going on in Ashford. And I thought, well, I haven't got far. But the lady on the switchboard at Carers Support said, how far are you from Hawkinge? And I said, well, 13 miles, 14 miles, something like that, is it? She said, the group there is meeting, so why don't you go and investigate that one and see whether you like it? Well, I couldn't have met a better group of supporters, carers, and the community worker at the time that was working there. Absolutely fantastic. Everybody, it's just like a huge embrace, isn't it? When you meet somebody that you can relate to. They were all going through the same journey that I was experiencing as well. And somehow that sort of, leaves it in your heart. So I got my first foot through the door, if you like, of finding support. And through talks that we had at those group meetings, I know they were only once a month, but such a wealth of information came out of that first few months that I had. I think we all need that time, don't we, at some point in our daily routine as well, where we do just need somebody to talk to or bit of advice given. Perhaps you're struggling with nutrition or aids in the home that will help make life a lot simpler. And I managed to get all the information very, very quickly of where to go, where to have assessments done, how to get a blue badge, etc., etc. And it's all thanks to Carer Support and that starting block, if you like. Jill said that Carer Support has been running 24 years. That's a fantastic achievement in itself. They are not an organisation, I have to say, that are standing still. They're constantly thinking of where is the demand coming from now, what new things have been brought on. Forget the legislation and everything that's going on in the background, but it's always trying to make sure that what carers want in East Kent, carers are going to have access to. And I don't know about you, but every time I put the news on, it gets more and more depressing, not from the world situation, but about caring and the care situation, and care homes, and care in your home. And it just seems to be snowballing at the moment. So I think instead of it plateauing, I think it is only going to get worse, and those figures that Jill gave are going to keep increasing, because more and more people are having to look after a family member, a friend, or somebody that they know. So where does the Carers Advisory Group fit in with this? Well, we're all volunteers for a start. As a carer, you're a volunteer. You don't really get an awful lot of choice, but you are a volunteer. And we do work in close cooperation with the senior leadership team. That's Jill, Jenny Bentley over in the back, who's waving to me now. They're our experts, they're guiding us, but we are also feeding back from, if you like, the grassroots. We're all carers, or have been carers in the past, in the very recent past, like myself. Our primary aim is to ensure that the charity, the Carer Support Charity, continues. We would hate to see it disappear, so we have got to support as much as we can. Talking about our own personal experiences during our meetings, I think actually helps to put things in context for both sides. You know, they're hearing, the senior leadership team are hearing what we need, and they're getting right to the centre of it and putting carers at their centre. In fact, there's a fantastic little adage, I need your help here. Remember the word right, because I'm going to look over to you. We're working collaboratively to ensure the right services are delivered to the people in a bit louder, come on, again, nearly there, in a right and appropriate way at the right time. So if you remember right all the time, we can't go far wrong, and that is so important. What you say, what you need is right, because it's right for you at the time. So bring it to us. If you've got some challenges, we want to hear about it today. We've got some little activities where Caroline is. Caroline is another one of our CAG members. CAG, I use CAG Carers Advisory Group. She's got some nice questions on the board over there that we want you to try and fill in if you can. A little plug, I can't let this day go by, a little plug. We are desperately trying to recruit more and more volunteers onto the group, because what we want to ensure is that there's a good cross-section of caring support, caring conditions represented on our committee. Now, you might think as well that it's an onerous job. If you're caring at the moment, you know, maybe this is all too much. Can I just reassure you, it isn't onerous at all. We have 4 meetings a year in June, September, December and March, so every quarter. They last about 2 hours. Our recent venues have been in Canterbury because it's sort of central for everybody to get to. There is always tea and coffee and custard creams if you're lucky on a day of our meetings. So it is a social time as well as a business time. Sometimes we have team meetings online between those quarterly meetings because something's come up that we want to accelerate. And sometimes there's documentation, legislation, or something that needs reading between, which we can all do at home and report back online. If you're not very technical, computer-wise, we do offer help with technological things, and most of us have taken that up at some time, I think, in our time. So it isn't onerous by any means, and we really would like to make sure that we've got a cross-section of caring conditions covered on the committee. It tends to be dementia-based quite often, and we want to explore much more wider things. And also we want more geographical cover as well from the whole of East Kent. At the moment it's just little conurbations perhaps. Ashford isn't terribly well covered, as me as a rep. So, you know, if you do have time in the future, you are thinking about it, then please come and talk to us. And that's one of the things today. Don't be frightened to come forward to talk to any of us. It really is important that your views are shared with us. Right, that's me done. That's the big sort of chunk and the appeal for volunteers. I have here 3 of the other committee members on the CAG group, and they're each going to lighten the load, I think, a little, and hopefully a little bit of humour in some of the caring situations, the carer stories that they have experienced over the last few months, maybe years, in their caring experience. So first of all, over to David.
Okay. Thank you, Sue. Good morning, everybody. You'd never have guessed that Sue was once a teacher, would you? Just the way she that talk. So my carer experience, I'm an ex-carer. Like Sue, my wife passed away just after Christmas. She had MS, and I was her main carer for sort of 15 or 20 years, something like that. You never quite know where the starting gun goes, do you? But it was something of that order. So a long time, and just reflecting on what Sue was saying, so I had a long period to get used to things, so it wasn't for me a sudden need for information. I picked up things slowly as time went by. I'm going to be around all day, or I expect to be around all day, so anybody wants to talk to me about my experience of caring for someone with MS, very welcome to come and chat. I think I just want to share a few things with you. Firstly, just to re-plug the role of the CAG group. Sue's covered it really well, but just to say that we are listened to. Things that we say are really taken on board by the senior management team of Carer Support East Kent and actually brought into being. So it's a valuable role in that way, apart from everything else. So just encourage, as Sue has said, more to come and join us. So my main reflection, I think, as an ex-carer, is just how important it was to retain something of my life whilst I was caring for my wife. As other people have said to me already today, it's a 24/7 role. You never stop, but it's so important for all sorts of reasons to find a bit of time for yourself. Now, I recognise that is really, really tricky. It's really, really difficult to do that. There are feelings of guilt associated with that, but it really is important that you do that in the best way that you can for you. I lost count of the times people said similar things to me. Well, you've got to look after yourself. And it's, yeah, great, okay, but what are you going to do about it? What I find is you really have to fight for it yourself, and you do have to take steps yourself to make sure that happens. Now I'm an ex-carer, I reflect back and think, well, actually I was able to keep some things going in my life. They were mainly to do with playing sport, but I've been able to pick those up and expand those as my life has moved forward. So that's just one message I just want to get across to you if I can, just to emphasise, yeah, please do try and keep something of your own life going if you possibly can. Just to those that are here in sort of more professional roles, just one of my bugbears was the lack of decent respite provision, certainly for people with neurological conditions in this part of the world. My wife did go sometimes into sort of home situations to be cared for. Just didn't work for her. The care wasn't up to it. And I was very fortunate. I was able to find a local carer, someone I knew who was able to take that on. I had support from family as well to get away for longer periods of time, which was just really important for me. So big plug, anyone listening, there's any influence over this, picking up what Rob was saying, long-time respite care, and actually organising it, facilitating it for carers, absolutely crucial and something that is sadly overlooked. Sue has said that there might be some humour, so I'm going to have a go. And because sometimes in the caring role, it can be lonely, it can be difficult, it can be tough. But then sometimes you just have to laugh, don't you? You just have to laugh at the ridiculous situations you find yourself in. So a couple of things I will share about things that happened to my wife. Now, we did try and go away and stay in hotels and this kind of thing, and because that's what she enjoyed doing. One of my bugbears about hotels, because I was having to hoist my wife, was that they often have these divan beds that go down to the floor, and you can't get a hoist underneath. Really, really annoying. But the hotel I was staying at on this occasion had things, the bed raisers on them, which raised the bed up, so the elephant feet, so called. So there was space under the bed. At this particular moment in time, it wasn't a great thing in terms of movement and handling, but I wasn't using a hoist. I was doing a kind of judo throw of my wife onto the bed, because you have to do what you have to do, don't you? You have to get through. Anyway, we'd been travelling all day, arrived at the hotel, my wife's really tired. First thing she wants to do is go onto the bed to have a rest. So the bed is raised up on these elephant feet, so off we go onto the bed, whereupon the bed collapses into the middle. So she's kind of wedged, it's a double bed, she's kind of wedged between one side of the bed and the other side of the bed. Of course, what happened, the nice hotel put these elephant feet on, it was a divan split into two, so they'd only put them on the outside, yeah? So there's nothing in the middle to support the bed. I'm not saying she was heavy particularly, but anyway, the bed collapsed, she was stuck in the middle. Fortunately, she was laughing and did see the funny side of it. I've absolutely no idea how I got her out of there, but obviously I did. And the best news was we got our money back for the night's accommodation, so there we go. And then the other story I'm going to tell you about is we had an appointment at the cricket ground in Canterbury for chiropody, which is on the first floor. Took the lift, and I was daft. We went up to the second floor. I got the wrong floor. So we arrive on the second floor in the lift. Oh dear, I'm on the wrong place, we need to go down. Call the lift, nothing happens. We're not in the lift, luckily we're not stuck in the lift, but the lift is not working. So there she is in her wheelchair, not able to walk, on the second floor. How are we going to get down? So a lot of people come rushing around from the chiropody clinic, from the cricket ground. What are we going to do? Can we call the lift engineer? Well, no, it's going to take a long time. Oh yeah, we knew there was a bit of a problem with the lift. Oh, thanks very much. So in the end, they called the fire brigade. So this was very, very exciting. Somewhat to my wife's disappointment, it didn't come with the siren blazing. But to her great excitement, the only solution was, well, first of all, they talked about getting a turntable in to sort of lift her over the side and get her down and everything like that. No. It ended up 3 young, burly firemen, ladies, can you imagine this? Okay, lifted her up bodily in her wheelchair and took her down the stairs. And the smile on her face, you should have seen it. She loved hearing that story. So sometimes I think you do just have to laugh about these things. So, hope you enjoy the day. I'm around if you want to talk to me about anything you've heard today or any of your experiences, particularly with anyone caring for someone with an MS. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. I've got a very soft voice and I have to throw my voice anyway to be heard. So, I enjoyed those stories.
Good.
Yeah, you've been reading my notes, haven't you?
No.
I think the amazing thing is, as David said, it is attitude. But where do you start with the attitude? First of all, we're faced with fear or shock. But you know, I suppose I've done this walk now for 18 months, but right at the beginning, we came at this from a faith point of view, because death comes to all of us eventually. How it comes is another reason why we are confronted suddenly with something we're not expecting. So my husband and I sat and when he told me after the Christmas, he already knew that he was going to have a bowel operation. We just said, oh, okay, that is not going to faze us. And this is the point I want to make about attitude. We didn't sink under that. That doesn't mean to say it didn't take some doing, because it did. And I think that the walk in the earlier days was quite apprehensive, but we had our goals, and we set our goals, and we moved towards those goals. The next one would be getting the blood test done, and then the next one would be getting a scan done. And we were looking and thinking positive results all the way, and how we would cope with them. And we found that that actually worked for both of us. And through it all, Jeff went on to a trial chemotherapy because having lost about 2/3 of the bowel, it was in the lymph nodes. However, 3 of those were found to be cancerous, and they had taken away 11 of them. So that meant now it had spread to the liver. And I'm going to tell you this as a point of witness as well. because at that point they pronounced him terminal. That was a different kettle of fish. We said, well, no, we're not having that either. We had to stay above, we had to keep our attitude above that. And so we used our prayer life, obviously. I'm a pastor, and we just went with it. That was not an easy walk. However, let me tell you about the cancers, because on his liver there was numerous. And when I asked how many, they said, we don't know, we cannot count them. There were that many. Okay, we'll target our prayer life around that. And that's exactly how we coped all the way through. Quite recently, Jeff had, he went down with, what do they call it, gallbladder. And he'd made medical history. You think, you've got a funny story there. I mean, he made history with a gallstone stuck in the pipework of the bladder in horrendous pain, the size of a lemon. And nobody, even the doctors and the surgeons, had never heard of anything like that. It gave us a bit of a laughing point afterwards. It almost nearly cost him his life. So outside, as I'm talking to the operator, she had just finished taking my details, and she said, I've just triggered the ambulance. They'll be there soon, stay with me, she said. And I heard, and I saw the light, and I said, but they're already here. And she said, what? I said, they're already here. And they came in and they took Jeff out, and they worked on him 45 minutes in the ambulance, because he was in such a bad way. And I think, well, God, you are amazing. You know, that you can actually meet us at a point before we know that we need that to happen. And so that did more for us, that boosted our faith even higher and more determined to see this through. So after the operation, about 5 weeks ago, they discovered, while they were in there doing whatever they were doing, that all the cancers on the left side of the liver had shrunk. He'd only had one, I think it was into his second lot of chemo. And on the right-hand side of the chemo, there is only one little white speck, which is currently being treated today, last week and today. He does a 56-hour chemotherapy from Wednesday right through till Friday. He has a line in permanently, so he's 3 hours on his infusion, and then he comes home with the other chemical drip feeding until Friday, when he goes back to the hospital. So it's a long stint. He never tires once. The point I'm making here is that the positive attitude focuses you forward, and you're looking at the good things and not at the bad. The bad things pull you down health-wise. I've discovered that we had some training courses that I could do, and I'm looking and I'm thinking to myself, well, if all these things happen, what am I going to do? I'm 84, I'm still active, I'm still busy, and I'm also public governor for Thanet, for the NHS, and I'm on this committee as well. So all of these things actually have come out of our time of knowing that Jeff had cancer, which they wouldn't normally have happened. Some of the courses that I'm talking about are there to give you a future. Think about your own future. What are you going to do? Not waste the rest of your life. You're going to get stuck in there and do something positive. Maybe learn a new profession. You can do that with these courses. I'm a nutritional therapist, qualified now, all from the one course. I'm also in the Guild of Veterinary Assistant Nurses, the Royal Guild, with letters after my name, which I didn't know I was going to get, because it came out with high extinction. I'm also a bereavement counsellor, qualified, and more. I've got a portfolio here. If anybody's interested afterwards, please come and have a browse. I want to really encourage you to go down a route that you can concentrate on, that will feed you and give you a hope for your future. And then you're in a better place to cope with what you're looking at today. And I hope that helps somebody, because I've also got a whole list of the academies that I used. Some of them are free. And I think my dearest course was about £79. That is because I sent for the manual. So, yeah, I mean, I'm looking around this room and I'm amazed that we've got so many smiling faces today. You're all precious. Each one of you got a talent, something that you can do. I like artwork. My husband has built me a, a studio to carry on painting. And I think, you know, you can still get blessed where you are at this time. So thank you for listening to me, and I hope I've helped you. And I'm glad to talk to you afterwards as well.
I think it is a very valid point that we don't, when we're in that caring situation, we don't just stand back for 2 or 3 minutes and think, what have I done for myself today? And it is so vital, so important. Moving on towards the end of the table, we have Dave. I wasn't going to mention this, but to be on the committee, you have to be called David or Dave or Jill or Jenny, because we've got so many of them, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
I jest, you don't. Please come forward if you are interested. Dave.
Yeah, well, good morning. Obviously, I have ticked the box with the name Dave. However, I just want to say, or to begin with by saying that caring is something that many of us have not been trained to do. Unless, of course, we've been in the medical or care profession. Some take to it well. Others, like me, will struggle, and I do struggle. I don't mind admitting that. Some find themselves a carer from a very young age, and others not until later in life, and often not by choice. The caring role is as varied as the situations that require a carer. And here, I must admit, I became blinkered when I actually joined CAG, because of course my experience has been through dementia. And of course, I didn't really give much thought to the fact that caring is maybe after someone's had an accident, cancer, or other issues that crop up through life. Some become carers from a very young age, and some even from birth. However, a lot of us find it's a loved one or a close relative. Unlike having been trained as a carer, as in the medical profession, we find ourselves thrown in at the deep end, and often for 24/7, which makes it pretty hard. My own experience came just before COVID, when my then 91-year-old aunt, following a fall requiring a hospital stay, when she returned home, it was found that she was actually moving towards dementia. I actually found that she wasn't actually paying her bills properly, and as one of her only living relatives, and the only one living quite close to her, I unwittingly became her carer. The first thing I did was, while she was still mentally capable, was to get powers of attorney for both her health, welfare and finances. And it is something that if you haven't done, I urge you all to do as quickly and as soon as possible. It does make things so much easier, as I'm going to say the journey, although I'm not happy by saying the word journey, but as the journey progresses, that does actually help in an awful lot. I also did mine at the same time, and as you'll hear in a moment, it was done in a very timely manner. As with dementia, my aunt deteriorated. She wasn't eating properly, not taking medication, and began accusing people, particularly her neighbour, of stealing her things. I think, again, just to put some slight amount of amusement into this, she was a very slight lady, my aunt, or still is actually, and she accused her disabled neighbour in a bungalow of coming through the roof, coming into her bungalow, taking things and going back up. And there was no way on earth could I convince her that it was an impossibility. And anyway, how didn't she see him? And it was always when her back was turned. So yeah, it was obviously moving on in quite a way. So after a while, I needed help. So I arranged through a doctor and eventually social services, and I managed to get carers to visit her on a daily basis, and also to have her meals delivered. At least that gave me some comfort, because at least I knew she was being visited professionally every day. So you can imagine my horror when I started noticing my own wife was going in exactly the same direction. I now had 2 people to care for, although at the early stages of my wife's illness she wasn't too consuming, but as she progressed this changed and she became more and more reliant upon me. After another fall, my aunt, now 96, was in fact admitted from hospital to a care agency, and then went into a care home as she deteriorated to the extent that she couldn't look after herself at home, not even with help. I could now put most of my attention on to my wife, and this was all just after lockdown. The waiting list for a neurologist was long, but we finally saw him, and having had memory tests, MRIs, she was diagnosed with a rare form of Alzheimer's called logopenic. And this mainly affects speech and memory. And in fact, from that point of view, her speech is there. She loves to talk, say things, but unfortunately she just never gets the right thing, named the right thing. So she simplifies things by everything is called a ship. So I have to try and understand what she's aiming at to find out what this ship is. If we go up the motorway, look at all those big ships, but they're lorries. The only difficult part is when we go for a walk down by the seaside and she talks about ships. Is she talking about, well, there we go. However, I also took her on holidays, and we had quite a number of holidays, but of course, unfortunately, with this disease, things became, for me, much more difficult. Although she seemed to enjoy them, she really didn't engage them enough. And I think, again, to make some slight amusement out of this, was when we were actually on a cruise, and it was posh night. And I said to her, right, you need to put on your smart dress tonight. Why? Well, because no, they won't. And we went through this discussion for quite some time. Despite me getting her dress out, she was not going to wear it, because she wasn't going to look silly amongst everybody else who wasn't, despite the fact that I got my dinner suit on. And you know, I can't remember where in the world we were, but I actually had to phone my daughter to ask her to tell her mum that it was posh night. She did finally put on the dress. She never said sorry when we went out and everyone else was dressed that way. Anyway, I did start taking her to local meetings with other dementia sufferers and carers, and that opened my eyes to the many forms of the disease and how different the role of a carer was. Because I hadn't learnt from my experiences by aunt, I still thought at that stage I could go it alone, but in fact, you can't. From the meetings, I began to discover other forms of health, some just advice, others that could provide practical help. One of these was the Rare Dementia Society, which of course at that stage I didn't even know existed, which was good because of course they did understand that particular disease. I was able to meet up on Zoom with others in my situation, still in the early stages, and some much more advanced, so we could actually share our experiences. From other meetings, I was made aware of Carers Support South East Kent, and I not only registered me as a carer, but also arranged for an assessment of my needs and subsequent follow-up assessments as time moved forward. They were able to help me get attendance allowance, something I had significantly failed on my own to get, so that exactly was really useful. It also opened doors to such things as coffee maltings, care meetings, crossroads, and even the Lions. They were also at the end of the line if I needed to speak to someone for some help or advice, and I would be able to speak to the named person who carried out my assessment, so they actually knew who I was and my situation. I was also introduced to a carer's card, which is something you could carry in your wallet, which says that you are a carer, and you put the numbers of immediate contacts, because of course none of us know exactly what might happen to us during the day. And in fact, I actually went one stage further with that, photographed it, and it is now the opening screen on my mobile phone, so should anyone need to, they pick up my phone, they're going to see that straight away. They helped me with a This Is Me form, on which general details of the person can be written and used, perhaps if they need to go into a hospital. But I have to say I've taken this one step further, and that was actually through the meeting with the Rare Dementia Society, and I've made now an emergency plan, so that that's readily available at home for anyone if something disastrous happens to me, because we don't know what's going to happen to ourselves, do we? And it contains all sorts of details, including all the emergency contact numbers, medications, and anything else that you feel may be important. So, all I really want to conclude by saying is, we are not alone out there. We may feel we're alone, and I think we've said that already, but it is a matter of seeking some advice. Look for it, find it. It is out there, but don't make my mistake. Don't try going on it alone. Actually, seek that help. It's there. Thank you.
But they're all going to do a little bit of a presentation, and then we'll be able to have the opportunity to have a question and answer session, and put some of the things that you really want to know potentially to some of the individuals. So listen to their presentations, make some notes potentially. I've got a roving mic, so that when it comes to doing the Q&A, I can come round to you. For those that remember Robert Kilroy's Silk, I'll do a bit of that coming to the audience. So we'll do that in a couple of moments, but before we go into that, I know that Jill just wants to say a few words.
Thank you. Yeah, just wanted to say thank you very much to our Care Advisory Group this morning for their excellent sharing of their experiences, and to highlight, we've got 3 members sitting over on the table today, so some of the themes that came through were around sort of training and learning, skills sharing, and over on the table, Caroline is asking people what would be of interest to you, but also, do you have a skill or an interest that you would like to share with somebody else? So please do go and visit the Care Advisory Group table and be where they have recruitment flyers over there as well. So walk past very quickly if that's not of interest to you. No, I'm only joking. Power of attorney was mentioned as being very important. We've got Geering Solicitors here this afternoon, so please do go and speak to them if that's something that you want to know about. And I just wanted to highlight at Care Support East Kent, we have something called Digital Eagles, which has been developed with Barclays, and that is also an online learning platform that is free for carers that use our services to access. So again, please do talk to our team if something is of interest. And we can also help you with emergency planning and moving and handling. So they were just a few things that I sort of took away from the things that you shared this morning, that if they're of interest to you, please do talk to members of the team who've got the lovely blue sashes. Thank you very much.
Great. Okay, so our first panellist, just to my left here, is Tanya Sealey, who's the Programme Lead for Carer Poverty Alleviation Carers Trust. Tanya.
Hi, thank you. Well, I'm Tanya Sealey. I actually work on a programme called Carer Money Matters. We rebranded, we gave it a different title. It's a national programme and it's run by Carers Trust. So who is Carers Trust? Well, we're a national charity and we work to support carers, but we don't directly support carers. We don't provide direct services to carers. We work with local carer organisations like Carer Support East Kent across the UK to do that. So one of the objectives for Carers Trust is that all carers have access to good local support. We have other objectives that I've got listed on my slide here, and I think we've heard a lot about carers living fulfilled lives, so that could be in many ways, as we heard, the right services at the right time, in the right place. So it could be around employability support, it could be around taking a break. So for us, it would be providing programmes that we work with local carer organisations to deliver, and it's feeding into our policy work, so how we talk to MPs, how we talk to policymakers as well. So a lot of what we learn from programmes, what happens on the ground, gets fed in. And then we also, our third main aim is that no carer is pushed into poverty, that's financially disadvantaged. And we know we're not there yet. So in the theme of Carers Week and inequality, we know that carers are more likely to be living in poverty than those without caring responsibilities. So that's an important area that we need to address. I wanted to illustrate on this slide actually how we do try and gather the carer voice to make sure that we're informed as much as possible. We know with the cost of living crisis that carers are going to be disproportionately impacted. We know that without doing anything, but it actually is much stronger if we can say we've heard directly from carers. So this is a survey we ran a few years ago where over 2,600 carers took part, completed a survey and told us the impact of the cost of living crisis. So when we talk to policymakers, government departments, MPs, we can say we know that there are tangible impacts that carers experience. It might be carers who have to use a food bank. It might be that most carers are worried about paying their energy bills. But it's not just statistics, we also need to tell stories. So we've got some quotes on there as well, but it's also bringing it to life by making sure that we hear those varied and diverse stories, because we know that not every carer's story is the same. So in terms of our programme work, Carer Money Matters is it's funded by 4 gas distribution networks, and we're working with 24 what we call our network partners, but they're local carer organisations across the UK. And one of them is Carer Support East Kent, which is fantastic. And we've got funding for 2 years, so it runs up until March next year. So that's always the challenge with programmes, that we get time-limited funding, but we get great learning that we can take to our funders, so that's really important. So in terms of what we do, it can vary from organisation to organisation, how it's delivered, but it's really about working with carers to look at their income and look at ways to maximise their income. Are they claiming all of the benefits that they can be claiming? Do they need help with applying for benefits? Are there grants or other sources of income that they can tap into, or reductions on bills, on council tax, other discounts in their area? A lot of that support is one-to-one with an advisor, but there's also group work as well. So it could be a workshop, it could be talking to a carer support group, it's going out in the community. I also wanted to talk about how we involve carers in our national work, because we've heard a lot about carer involvement locally, but it's really important that the carer voice is throughout everything we do. So we have commissioned an independent evaluation of carer money matters, as we do with all our programmes. So this is where carers can talk about their experiences of the services that they've accessed and the impact it's had on their lives. So that could be a survey, focus group, interview. But we also gather carer stories separately. So we will interview carers for blogs, we make films. I've got one we're doing on in Coventry on Monday. We also ask local care organisations like Carer Support East Kent to send us their stories. And those stories could be a named carer, but they could be anonymous as well. There could be quotes, there could be all sorts of things, because it brings it to life. We are planning to do some more research, so we're in the process of commissioning some research to find out, get some updated data on carers' experience of particularly fuel poverty because of the gas distribution networks funding this project. And we have direct involvement. So we also, you hear about the CAG, we have the SIG. So we have our carer involvement group. And that's for this programme. We have a carer involvement group for Carers Trust generally. But for this programme, we have carers who have volunteered to be involved in different ways. So some meet regularly, others get involved as and when it's appropriate for them, doing the things that they're interested in, bringing their skills into play as well. So why do we do that? Well, it really informs programme design. So actually we've got those leaflets in the other room. So this is a recent leaflet that we put together. So we work with carers to inform the content, the design. We could do that by email. So that really informs how we run the programme. We've got carers involved in our evaluation. They've looked at the survey and said, you've not included this, or it's too long. You know, so looking at those sorts of things. So it really informs how we run the programme and make sure it's as good as it can be. We can take the stories, our learning to MPs and other key decision makers. This photo is from a parliamentary event that we ran in December. We had 9 carers there from 6 of our local carer organisations, and they got to talk to nearly 40 MPs, telling their stories directly to those MPs. So that's another way that we can involve carers. Our marketing PR, so this is a video we made with one of our local partners up in Scotland, in Helensburgh and Lomond. So we promoted that on our social media, on our websites. We're also working directly with some of our local network partners or local care organisations to help them with local PR, but we need carers' stories to bring it to life. We need those quotes, we need those videos, we need the stories as well. And we tell our funders, because we have some very dry conversations with our funders about targets and figures, but actually we need to bring it to life by telling them the stories. And we've got some brilliant stories. We've got some great stories from Carers Support East Kent that I've talked about to the funders, because it helps me to articulate what the programme is about. So it's really important that we have those stories. And it's not just the good stories, it's not just, oh, you know, the great impact. It's also demonstrating the complexity of the work and showing what it is in practice, so our funders understand and they can fund in the future in a more meaningful way. So I'm going to stop there, and that's basically Carers Trust and Carer Money Matters.
Lovely. Tanya, Sealey.
So our next panellist is Lauren Garbutt-West, Policy and Public Affairs Manager at Carers UK. Lauren.
Yeah, cool. So hi, I'm Lauren Garbutt-West, and I'm Policy and Public Affairs Manager at Carers UK. And I've only been there 6 weeks, so apologies for reading off my notes, and I hope that I don't get caught up by any tricky questions. But yeah, it's been great to work at Carers UK and learned so much already, but hopefully I can do them proud on the presentation. So I'm going to split this presentation into 3 parts, and the 3 parts are representing each of Carers UK's aims. So Carers UK aims to support carers. We just need to go again. Please, come on. Yeah, so we technology. So we find new ways to reach and support carers, and we also campaign together for lasting change. And the campaign ones where I'm going to focus on, but just to begin with, I'm going to talk about support. So we have lots of different ways we provide support for carers. Our website is really kind of useful, having lots of information and advice, and we also have our free phone helpline as well. We also have lots of ways where carers can meet with each other, whether that be online. We have Care for Couples, where you can meet weekly via Zoom to meet carers in your local area, but also across the country. And we also have webinars on anything from my website, from accessible yoga to finances. So whatever you're kind of looking to get advice on, or just kind of relax and learn some new yoga moves, we can do that. But I was particularly focused on our members conference for the support that we offer. So every year we hold a Carers UK members conference, and it's free to become a Carers UK member, and anyone who's a current carer or previous carer can join. And for this year it's particularly kind of relevant because it's the 60th anniversary of Carers UK, so it's a particularly special conference. And I went there on day 5 of my job, so it was great to see over 100 carers in the room from across England, kind of coming together to kind of reflect on what's happened to MPA caring across the UK for the last 60 years, but also how far we need to go, because there's so much more that needs to be done. So we had some fantastic speakers along the day of MPA carers who were at various kind of parts of their caring journey, and we also had an MP visit as well to talk about kind of how the Lib Dems are trying to support kind of carers across the UK. So I think this was a really kind of great, great event that happened just in April, and I'd highly recommend, if you're not already becoming a Carers UK member. Has lots of benefits, but I think particularly kind of having that yearly opportunity to become, to see kind of carers from England and kind of just have a chat and just see, kind of get advice and share best practice. So, the next Carers UK aim is finding new ways of reaching and supporting carers. So, from our research, we know there's about 5.7 million carers in the UK, and kind of looking at the Carers Week theme, we know that kind of carers are facing even greater challenges and inequalities. So, we work with local authorities and NHS and employers to kind of try and tackle these inequalities. But one of the areas we know is particularly challenged is in employment. So carers really struggle to either find work that kind of fits around their caring responsibilities or staying in work when their caring needs are changing. So from our research, we found that 1 in 6 carers have to give up work or reduce their hours to provide that care. So I was going to talk quickly about our pioneering programme called Employers for Carers. An EFC was launched in 2009, and it's a membership body for organisations who are committed to working with carers to kind of become sector leaders really on supporting MPA care in their business. And there's now 250 employee members across the UK, and they range from the public, private and voluntary sector. And it covers actually 3 million employees, which is just fantastic. And the reason I want to focus on this a little bit is because conference again, we had our Employers for Carers conference just back in May, and it was really kind of fantastic. I think there was over 100 organisations and businesses there trying to learn and share best practice on how companies can really support employers in their organisations. And we heard from the Bank of England, who have achieved our gold standard as being the best for supporting MPA carers, down to the civil service about how they are looking to kind of do more work around MPA care. So yeah, it was a really kind of fantastic day, and I think if anyone kind of has businesses or work for good employers that would like to get involved, then yeah, it's a really fantastic scheme. So I'm going to move on now to the final aim of the Carers UK, which is campaigning and research. And this is the big one for Carers UK because at heart we are a campaigning organisation. So this is my area as Policy and Public Affairs Manager, so hopefully I can do this bit justice. So we have a number of campaigns at the moment, and the newest one is our campaign on disability and health benefits, the cuts in the welfare reforms. So obviously I'm sure many of you in this room are really concerned about what the government are doing at the moment, and at Carers UK we are definitely kind of hearing from carers that they are very scared about the changes that the government are proposing around PIP and around carers allowance. And we know that there's going to be a devastating impact to unpaid carers and their families if this change goes through. So we launched recently our Protect Carers Benefits campaign, which is calling on the government to immediately reconsider the proposals they set out to implement and hopefully reduce the poverty that carers are facing, not exacerbate it. So yeah, this is a really kind of key area for us at the moment, and we're trying to kind of meet as many MPs and government ministers as possible to really kind of raise and get carers' voices in front of them to really hear about how vital it is that this reform does not go ahead. So our next campaign is around ending carer poverty. So nice and linked in nicely to Carers Trust. So we know that carers allowance overpayments are a massive issue as well for unpaid carers. So we're looking at kind of trying to campaign to change the way that carers allowance works for people that actually do work already, just to make it much less complicated, and also make sure that carers are not penalised for actually working. So yeah, we've been working with Ms. Says, who is doing the overpayments consultation in the government, to try and find better solutions to this, make sure that carers who are in work are not being penalised. And I wanted to link into this that we are also the founder of the Carer Parity Coalition, which was formed in February 2023. And that's a really great kind of coalition that brings together 130 national and local carers organisations. So Carers Trust is a big one, but also kind of local carers bodies as well. And that really makes sure that we're kind of hearing from the local carers across England to make sure we're really feeling into what's actually happening on the ground and making sure people's stories are really getting in front of people who need to hear them. So coming on to almost our final campaign, so the NHS 10-year plan is another really big campaign for us, making sure that unpaid carers really have a strong voice in shaping the future of the NHS. And we're actually quite delighted that they've made such an effort to kind of have people lived experience of the NHS actually feeding in to the consultation. So if you haven't already fed into that as either your unpaid carer or through a local carers group, then I highly recommend doing that. And then the final campaign we're also running at the moment is making caring the 10th protected characteristics. This is quite an important goal for Carers UK as we come into our 60th year. So obviously we know in the Equality Act 2010 there is currently 9 protected characteristics. And we think that actually if caring was a protected characteristic, it will just kind of make sure that support is really kind of formalised basically, and actually will make things so much easier for carers who are currently missing that vital support. So going on to research, almost the end. So research is a really important part of Carers UK. I think we have such a kind of a great kind of policy team and links with kind of the decision makers. Actually, research is really, really vital for us, and that's kind of where we make sure we're working really closely with local organisations to kind of get carer stories in front of people that need it. But I wanted to kind of draw attention to our research that would be focusing on equality, because obviously Carers Week is all about caring about equality. So we've been doing quite a lot of research in the past few months around kind of inequalities within healthcare and also mental health. I'm just going to read a few of the stats that we found because I think it will really resonate with people in the room. So recently we found out that more than half of carers who we spoke to were feeling really overwhelmed, often or always, and a third have said that they have bad or very bad mental health. And that was compared to only 30% last year, so there's been a really big shift in how people are feeling about their current care responsibilities. And actually over 2/3 of unpaid carers said the reason they're feeling overwhelmed is because they're not able to take time away from that caring role. That lack of respite is really just missing, and it's not feeling supported by kind of their local social care to actually take a step away and actually do things for themselves. So I think, that's a really kind of worrying picture, and it's something that we're really kind of working to challenge as we go forward. So So I'm just going to move on quickly to Carers Week. Obviously, Carers UK is kind of the organiser of Carers Week, so couldn't leave without saying what we're calling for. So yeah, kind of as Carers Week, as all the charities that are coming together, we are really looking to work with the government to kind of make a cross-government action plan for supporting carers, and we really want to see a delivery of a national carer strategy. And we really think that's going to help kind of improve the identification and recognition of carers, because right now people actually aren't recognising themselves as carers until they're very far down the line. Which actually, if we can get that early recognition, then the support will be much better placed. But we know that also the strategy will hopefully help to kind of target the financial hardship that's happening at the moment. Obviously, so many carers are really struggling with the cost of living, and this is only going to get worse if the government does go ahead with their changes. And yeah, our final call is to get the government signed to the Young Carers Covenant, which is, again, a Carers Trust initiative, so I don't want to say about that. So yeah, I think as Carers UK campaign is a big part of our work. So if you would like to find out how to get involved in our campaigns, then you can look at the website. So we currently have an open letter to the Prime Minister about the welfare reforms, and you can also write to your MP, asking your MP to challenge the reforms and kind of share your personal story about how these changes will affect you. And then also we have a Carers Week kind of online action where you can write to your MP and ask them to sign up to supporting Carers Week, and that might be coming to an event next week or kind of meeting with your local organisations. Hopefully everyone here has supportive MPs who support Carers Week, but if they're not, then hopefully you can get them on board. So yeah, you can just visit our website, would be great, and that is on the screen, hopefully. So yeah, we have the Carers UK website and the Carers Week website. So yeah, that is all from me. Thank you for your time.
Lovely.
From Carers UK. Okay, so our next speaker is Janice Grant, who is Assistant Director in Adult Social Care at Kent County Council. Janice.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Great, thank you. And I get to follow Lauren and some amazing speakers already this morning, so good luck to you guys after me, because I'm going to wow them all. No, maybe not. So yeah, we've had some really good information and robust information. Jill, your organisation has been running for 24 years, so you've seen the advent of the Care Act, so just kind of a quick big up for the Care Act bit of legislation. That's my policy background bit covered. But the Care Act is really, really important. Yeah, I know, it's law and it's boring, but it's not. For you guys, that actually placed you on the same legal footing as the cared for. So you have a lot of rights. But when we look at what's happening, and when we listen to Lauren and Tanya, we know that actually, has that made a difference? It's made some difference, but not the right difference. So there's a huge, huge journey for us as a country and as a county in order to actually meet the needs of the carers across the UK. And when I say that, I think about how important that is. And David, you mentioned the number of carers across the UK. I'm going to give you a figure that I promised Nigel I wouldn't mention. Lots and lots of carers across the UK. If you look at the last census for Kent and Medway, and I can't give you the figure for East Kent alone or for Kent alone, it's a Kent and Medway census figure. The carers across Kent and Medway provide how many hours a week? Shall we go, somebody give me a figure. How many caring hours do carers in Kent and Medway deliver each week? Somebody chuck me a number.
72.
72 hours. All in total? No.
Couldn't work
A little bit more than 72. So, should we go up from 72? Who thinks it's more than 72 hours a week?
100,000.
Yeah. How many?
100,000.
100,000.
Oh, I thought you meant per person. Sorry.
No, in total. 100,000? More or less than 100,000?
More.
Give me another number.
Million.
Give me another number.
5 million.
5 million carer hours across Kent and Medway. And that's what we know from the census. And we also know that carers actually underplay how many hours they provide. If you all went on strike, and please don't, I'm not suggesting this, if you all went on strike, you'd bankrupt the local authority and the NHS in a week, because we just could not cope with that. So you are incredibly important. The people in this room are incredibly important people and incredibly important assets, both to the person you care for and yourself, and also to me as a local authority employee and to my NHS colleagues, because we can't do it without you. And that's going to be a bit of a theme in what I talk about here. So, what are we doing in Kent? The ask for me was to say, what are we doing at the moment to support carers in Kent, and what are we doing as we go into the future? So, we've got a carers strategy. I never talk about my slides, actually. Sorry, I just apologise. I'll put some slides up there and then I'll talk. The carers strategy. This was set in 2022, and this aims to deliver what makes a difference for you as carers. Because we're talking about you guys in the carers strategy, not the people who are cared for, you guys. And this is about ensuring that we in the council are delivering the things that you have told us are important to you. And those were all the things that were mentioned by our panel first thing this morning. Ensuring that you are recognised as individuals and you can actually access support that helps you to carry on doing the things that you are doing to support the cared for as long as you are willing as able and able. And those words are directed from the Care Act. So those are some of the things that we're doing. The Care Act also enabled us to delegate the assessment duty. So along with you getting a legal status, we in the local authority got a legal duty to assess you. And we also were able to delegate that legal duty. So you're the only people in Kent that we delegated through law our assessment duties, and we delegated that to the carers organisations across Kent because actually they're better at understanding your needs than we are. That's not to say that some of us aren't carers or wouldn't understand your needs, but actually if we're looking at the cared for, are we the right people to be looking at you as individuals and understanding what your needs are? So we delegated that function. We can still assess you if you would prefer that one of our staff assessed you, or our colleagues in the voluntary sector can do that. We've got different organisations across Kent that are doing that for us. That is done through a contract. So it's a very formal arrangement that comes along with it with various duties and things that we need to do when we understand what's being delivered, to whom and how. And that's also important because understanding what's being delivered tells us what else we need to commission and buy. It tells us who we're delivering it to, and it's telling us what are the gaps, what are the things that we aren't commissioning and we aren't buying and that we need to shape as we go into the future in order to deliver the right things to help you to carry on doing the things that you do for as long as you are willing and able. What we also know is that we're not getting all the people that we could captured in the information that we've got. Kent is a very diverse county. We have so many different communities. We have a strategy group that is helping to deliver the carer strategy. It's got an action plan. Jill sits on my strategy group, but it's not a terribly diverse group. To be honest, there's a lot of white middle class people on that strategy group. So we're reaching out, and we'd really like to reach into other communities of carers so that we actually represent Kent as a community. We want to make an improved offer for carers. I don't know what slide I've got up there now, but I'll still carry on talking because I can't see round corners. So we want to make sure that that offer's improved. So in our recommissioning work, we've been talking a lot to carers, and we've been talking about what is it that we're missing, what is it that we're doing okay, and what do we need to do going into the future. So we're talking to a lot of carers, and we're really using your expertise and your knowledge to tell us what it is that we need to be doing. And what you've told us is that you want just one point of access. You don't want to have to go all over the place. At the moment, to get carer support, you might go to your GP, you might go to a carers organisation, you might come to the council. It just happens all over the place in lots of different ways. So we want to make it as streamlined and easy for you to access support as possible. Another thing that we've already done is to help you to make that journey into support through the council by creating a carer self-assessment. That was something that carers told us that they want. So you don't have to do it online. You can still have a face-to-face assessment with one of these organisations, but you can also come direct to us and we could signpost you to an organisation, or we could do it ourselves and assess you through the information you give us. So you could go onto the website at a time that suits you, and you can fill in information about you. So you can do it at 2 o'clock in the morning if that suits. We all know that carers' hours and the things that you do can mean that actually you don't want to be filling it in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when the person you care for needs the most help. You might want to do it when you've got a quiet moment, or you might want to do it at 2 o'clock in the morning because you've been kept awake for a long time by your caring hours. So we've created a carer self-assessment. So that's a couple of things that enables you to tell us about you when you want to. The other thing that we're thinking about, and you might have some ideas on this that you can give me later, or you can pass into the people that we've got sitting outside who's giving information about the council, the word assessment. The word assessment is in the Care Act. That's the statutory duty that we have. We don't have to call it an assessment. And one of the things that carers have told us is they don't really like the word assessment. And I'm kind of going to do a straw poll around the room in a minute when I've told you why carers have told us that. The reason why carers have said to us we don't like the word assessment is because, and this is their words, not mine, we feel like when we're being assessed, we're being tested. It's an assessment of our ability to care for the cared for, rather than a way of us, and whether it's Jill's organisation or a different carers organisation or the local authority, understanding what caring means to you and what would make a difference to your day to enabling you to carry on doing it. So do people think that assessed is the right word to use there? Would you prefer to see a different word?
Yeah.
Yeah. If people have got an idea of what that word might be, because I actually have racked my brains and tried to think of different ways to simply say that, I've struggled because I come up with lots and lots of words because I'm a little bit wordy. You might notice that already. But if you've got an idea, please let's have it, because it would be incredibly helpful for us. I've mentioned the commissioning work that we're doing. What that will also do is shape what's being delivered as support through the carer organisations that we commission with. So what does that look like? What's the support look like? How are they delivering it? At the moment, for example, our carers organisations are doing some fantastic work around transition, and that's transition for young people, for carers of young people with care needs, but also for young people who transition into being adult carers. We kind of haven't really got an eye to what they're doing. They're doing some great work. As a local authority, we haven't really got much of an arm into what they're doing. So we've added that into our action plan so that we're actually working much closer with the carers organisations on doing that. So we've got an action plan in the strategy group. if you're interested in getting involved and driving that forward and really shaping what we're doing and how we're doing it, please talk to Alina and Jade, who are sitting outside, because they are our involvement people. They do some great work. I haven't done this. Where am I now? Because I can't see. Right. So, they're our carers' voice people. So they're the people who are talking to our carers about what makes a difference and how you can get involved with the council. One of the key things that we're doing as a local authority is looking at co-production. So whatever we're doing, whatever we're shaping, the commissioning work that my colleague Ben and his team's doing, the work that my staff do as operational practitioners, the work that we're doing in centre in shaping what we're delivering in adult services is all being informed by something called co-production. And co-production is where people who are actually the real people out there, not me, I'm not a real person, I'm a hologram. The real people out there who are using our services, who are providing caring responsibilities, tell us that they need. So it helps us to shape the services to make sure that they are actually doing the things that you need. You're paying my wages, so tell me what you want me to do every day. Yeah, so get involved. Talk to the involvement officers. And that involvement can be being on a strategy group, which sounds a lot grander than it is, to be honest, I think, isn't it, Jill? Or just coming along to some of the forums, or talking to our involvement officers when we're doing things. We've had involvement officers who have been really involved in shaping what's our technology project, which is the way we use technology to support people. We've got all sorts of things now in our technology offer, and most of that is because people have told us that these are the things that they struggle with, this is what will help them day to day. Again, I've lost where I was. So this is kind of the way that our involvement team work. They will gather information from people, they'll talk to you, they come out to different events. If you are involved in doing anything, it doesn't necessarily have to be a carers event, you might be involved in something else or going to a different meeting. You might think about bringing some involvement officers along to talk about something, so please do get involved, or you can talk to me as well, because I'll be here for it for a while, because apparently I get paid with the lunch if I present. So their key role is to make sure that you're valued, that the value of your knowledge and experience is used by us as a local authority. So how can you get involved? There you go. There's another slide. I don't know what that actually says because I can't read it on my notes and I didn't make that slide up. But basically, this gives you all the information about our involvement team, what they do, how to get involved, the things that you can do to get involved. If you're involved with a practitioner, if you've got a social worker assistant, somebody that comes and talks to you, you can talk to them about getting involved. How can I get involved? Or you can just give us comments, send your comments back, write it into the annual carers survey that we send out, because that's another way of giving us feedback. We read every single sheet of that carers survey, and the things that Tanya was saying, well, I think it was actually might have been Lauren, was saying around the things that we're seeing in the national surveys about the impact of the caring role on carers, on their mental health, on their health and well-being. Exactly the same as the things that we see in our carers survey. So we know all these things. We need to use you to help us to make it better for you. I think that's the end of mine. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got two more voices that we're going to hear from before we have our Q&A element, and both coming from the sort of medical direction. Firstly, Karen Edmunds, who is Associate Director of Patient
Experience at East Kent Hospitals University NHS Foundation Trust. So I think you win the prize for longest title of the day so far. Karen, over to you.
I'm going to come over there because I haven't got a copy of my slides, and I've got very focused glasses. If I try and look at this green down there, I'm going to be absolutely hopeless. Which one do I press if I need to do it? Okay, lovely, thank you. We're at that point now where people are probably thinking, when's lunch? Are they going to carry on talking
brief. I would like to start by saying I'm a former carer. I cared for my late husband for over 20 odd years. He had multiple sclerosis. So I lost him sadly in 2013. So I absolutely know to my core what it's like to be a carer for someone and try and work full time as well as caring for someone. So, and I think the work that Carers Supporters can do is amazing. And I've known Jill for a long time over the years, in different roles. I've worked with you and you've helped me with the work I've been doing in the NHS trust that I've worked at. So thank you, Jill and colleagues. Your involvement's really valuable to us, so thank you. So wanted to share with you some things we've done since 2023, because I've been at the trust now nearly 3 years, but we spent the first few months just kind of forming a team. So I have the patient voice and involvement team under me. I have volunteering and also chaplaincy services. So a lot of the early days were spent on particularly setting up what we're going to do around patient voice and involvement. We had a strategy, but we had to bring it to life. But some of the things we've done that are very specific things that I think will benefit carers and families. The first one was extending the hospital visiting hours. So from October 23, we extended them to be from 7 a.m. in the morning, 7 in the morning, till 8 in the evening. And initially there was a little bit of alarm from some of our colleagues about, what are we doing here? You know, we're going to be overrun with families and carers at breakfast time and things like that. What it's actually done is it's helped families stay connected with their loved ones. People can drop in on the way to work, they can pop in at lunchtime. They don't have to wait for that dreaded 2 p.m. slot when the car park's already rammed and you're sort of thinking, have I really got time to do this? So extending that has had a benefit. What we're finding is that families are able to spend more time supporting their loved one while they're in hospital. It's actually freed up some staff time, and the staff have seen the benefit for the patient, but also it benefits the staff as well, and it reassures that person about their loved one and how they're being cared for. We also have continued our commitment to John's campaign, which is around people living with dementia and their carers, so that totally open visiting for people that are in hospital who have dementia. Sometimes they need their loved one to be with them the whole time they're there, so making sure we support that to happen. People have got somewhere comfortable to sit and sleep overnight if they need to be with their loved one. Our dementia team have developed a carer's welcome pack, a carer's passport. So if you come into contact with the dementia team because your loved one with dementia's in one of our hospitals, so that's the Queen Elizabeth, Queen Mother in Margate, William Harvey in Ashford, and KentCHFT Hospital, you can get that carer's pack, but also there's a carer's passport. So the ward manager or someone senior on the ward can give that passport. If anyone says, why are you coming in at sort of 5 in the morning to see your loved one, you've got your carer's passport to verify that you're sort of officially the carer for that person. Something else we've done more recently, and Carer Supporters Kent and some individual carers, I know Sue Thompson, who leads the CAG, was involved in working with us on the carers, with a carers task and finish group. So we developed a carers policy, but we also have been able to provide a co-design a leaflet for carers as well, which we launched during Carers Week last year. The policy was important from my point of view because we didn't have anything written down about recognising the value that carers bring as our patients, family members and carers, but also what our commitment would be to carers and seeing carers as part of the team. You know, you're an expert partner in care for that person, and if we actually embrace that, the episode of care will go better, but also it will be a better outcome for that person if someone that they love and trust is involved in more in their care. But we also recognise that carers have got a right not to care and actually have breaks and not feel that they've got to be there at that person's bedside all the time because they're worried about what's going to happen to them if they're not next to them, looking after them when they're on a ward. So to help promote our policy, we did a bit of a screen desktop wallpaper thing during Carers Week last year, actually promoting to staff that we've got the carers policy. We are looking at getting some carers awareness training. It's not come to fruition quite as quickly as we'd hoped. Everything takes a long time in the NHS. I used to work in the voluntary and community sector where you could just get stuff done, and now it's like a very long, torturous process to achieve things sometimes. But I'm very determined, so we always get there in the end. We've also developed this leaflet, which I've mentioned, which carers were involved in co-designing, so I really love the title of it, which is that you care and we care. Because actually we are partners in this, so we should see you as equal partners when we're looking after your loved one. And it's got lots of useful information about it, written it about sort of support for carers, but also explain that process of what happens. So if you're coming with your loved one to an appointment, or you're coming, you want to visit them while they're in hospital, or stay with them when they're having, say, chemotherapy, or something like that, about your right to do that. And that's now part of the CQC regulations, actually, that patients got a right to be accompanied at any of their appointments and have someone stay with them if that's what they need. So it's really important that if you are challenged about that, you can quote, there was a CQC regulation 9A, but that's mentioned in this leaflet, and it's certainly in our policy as well. We have a carer survey. This was launched in 2023, and the results, I'm sad to say, show that too often carers are not listened to. As a carer, you are the expert in the person you care for. You know them far better than we do. So when they come into hospital, whether that's for a planned surgery or as an emergency admission, it's really important that we listen to you and find out about this person and what's like normal for them, as it were. Because how that person might be presenting to us in an emergency when they're very poorly may not be remotely how they are normally. You know they're not their normal self, they're very ill. We need to be listening to you, but also what they might need. You know, do they have any communication needs? Do they have hearing loss? It's important they've got their glasses or other things that we might need to know about. It's really important we listen to you, and that is not routinely happening still. It's also important that you are involved in discussions about their discharge from hospital. And I know there's a question about that in the Q&A, so I won't say anything more about that now. But we know that carers are frustrated by the fact that they know the person well and staff are not listening. Now I know our staff are very busy, our emergency departments are overflowing with people, there isn't always much time, but there's got to be time to listen. Because if we don't, the chances are that episode of care will go far more poorly, that person won't have such a good experience, you'll be completely stressed, even more stressed than you would be. You're already worried about your loved one, let alone not being listened to. So we need to get better on that, and we're committed to try and improve that, but there's still a long way to go. But I've got a lot of amazing clinical colleagues who want to see these changes and improvements, so we're on a bit of a journey on that. I think people have already mentioned about carers' rights and the Care Act, but that's really important that you know what your rights are, and if necessary, quote them. I think being an advocate for your loved one, speaking up, I know it can be really hard, but I think it actually, people often, if you quote them, believe that one, they go, oh, okay, I know that. So we're trying to make our staff aware of the rights of carers, but we've got 10,000 staff across 5 hospital sites, so it's quite difficult getting that message out to everybody. And we really want to sort of improve that. But if you've got any feedback you want to give us, you can use the carer survey. I put on the slide the link to the survey on our website. And I think that is the end of my presentation.
And now, our next speaker is Adam Lott, who is Head of Health Inequalities at Kent Community Health NHS Foundation Trust. Adam.
So, right, thank you. Let me say how I'm walking. I've got a bit of a back injury, which is self-induced. And I used to teach fitness yoga in here actually many moons ago. No, I'm better standing. Like when I came in earlier, I just stood the back for ages, which was much better. Okay. I usually speak very, very quickly, so that might rush things along. I wanted to give some practical examples as well of what we're doing in our organisation that helps carers influence what we do. We provide a range of community-based hospital services, community nursing services and therapies and things out there. So very different and distinct compared to Karen's organisation in terms of the EKHUFT Trust. Which one do I press? The middle one? Okay. So I just wanted to give a little bit of my story. So I was reflecting before coming today and thinking, okay, I've got these different experiences probably throughout my life course. So as a child, I watched and was in many care environments, not for myself, but for my parents who were caring for my brother with cerebral palsy. So I remember the different examples from him being scared, being left in hospital overnight, to the other end, when he had surgery, he was having his casts off, and he'd be giggling his face off because the vibrations just made him laugh and tickled him. So those are really interesting. I think about all those different places and therapy environments that he was in, and watching it through the eyes of a child. And then later on in my career, when I grew up, worked alongside some young carers organisations as well. So I got some insight there. My first job in the NHS is I used to work in HIV prevention. I used to do a lot of support working with people who are HIV positive, and lots of support groups. So lots of people that I used to work with in a group environment didn't have anybody to care for them. So very unlikely a family member, they were very isolated. So they were very much relying on social services support and care, and their clinical nurse specialists, and their just a balloon about. Big news is that put a pin in it that day just to finish off. You okay about that? Deep breaths. Livened you up. So yes, so my experience of people who had friends and other community connectors in their community who were caring for them, whether they were very, very poorly or at the beginning of their journey in terms of that. And then the last 18 months being a carer part of the week for my mum, who died last year from motor neurone disease, and then being an expert for my parents in all those different environments as well, and the medical environments, the appointments, and people coming along and writing everything down because my dad was not going to remember everything that was being said, and my sister doing that likewise, so we would go and stay at their house regularly, and they aren't local. But I wanted to give an example because there was one in particular which was around a pharmacy example for me. So I had to go and pick up, I can tell what now, just in case medications for the first time. I went to the GP surgery, picked up the prescription, was able to just go across the road to pick up from the pharmacy. I walked in with this big long list of medications. I wasn't really aware of what was going to be involved, what was in it. But I knew it wasn't good in terms of my mum's journey. And I got to the pharmacy and they started giving me their stock take to me over the counter, what they didn't have in place. Something that I wasn't prepared emotionally or actually in my brain capacity to have a conversation about. So I had to keep asking them just to stop. I don't need to know what you've got here. I need to much rather be back at home, sat at the bedside of my parents' living room with my mum than having this conversation with you. And it didn't drop, the penny still didn't drop after me saying, I need you not to give me this information. So in the end I went, I'm going to go sit over here and wait for you to give me whatever I'm required. If you don't, come and let me know and I'll take it and I'll get it somewhere else. And I still don't think the penny dropped. So I left with a big bag, massive carry bag full of different medications, and had to get it home to the surprise of my parents thinking this is now something else which is meaningful. On a couple of days after my mum passed away, my dad said, we need to take lots of medication back, we're doing lots of organisation. When I walked in straight away, I think that people knew, not maybe from remembering me, but used to people bringing a big bag of medications back. And that was a very much more careful experience. But I think it's that, the different examples we might have in NHS and other healthcare services where people you've got so much more going on in your mind and what you're thinking and feeling, and then someone's trying to bring some practical examples and it's like, just do this bit then I can go. So it's quite emotive really. So I just wanted to share that in terms of my story, those three different elements from being a young person in my first work environment 20 plus years ago, when there wasn't much support for people who were HIV positive, and then towards the end of life, and also the prejudice that they experienced. I'm going to whiz through this so that you can get some questions in. So do these get shared afterwards, I guess, with people maybe? Doesn't matter if not. It's just around, there's some really good infographics around who people are caring for, whether it's their mother, partner, father, and different percentages of people that are likely doing that, and all the different tasks that they will be doing in terms of their families. So, but then we're thinking about health inequalities of carers particularly. So, early identification of support for people who are carers, and that they are likely to experience poorer health. I'm really interested to know what the health conditions, so starting mental health was there going to be a natural thing in terms of the pressures and things we might experience. But if you're a carer and you have a condition yourself and you're caring for somebody else, it must be really, really tough. So do you have something that's wrapped around you in terms of personalised care plans and for the specific needs of carers and their families, particularly where the carer's health is likely to decline over the caring experience? And then about increased awareness and support within services. So there's a bit around what we said before around the support that wrap around respite care and finances, etc. that's available. And also health service awareness. So in our organisation, and Karen spoke about it briefly, around training health professionals around what the needs of carers are. I think in our organisation, because it's probably very different compared to the acute, it's much slower. There's a lot more happening and planning in terms of somebody's intervention over a long period of time in the community. So I see lots of carers considerations coming in to what's happened within our communities and then within our services. A couple of examples that we do. So there are carers involved as volunteers and participants in all of our processes and our places and what we do. Involvement in discharge processes and carers surveys. We have a flag which is on our patient systems, which is identifies if somebody is a carer, so they're receiving a health service and their patient profile, you can flag up that they're a carer. Very little numbers in terms of the amount, I think it's 0.3%, I checked yesterday with colleagues, actually have that flagged. And then we were talking, as colleagues at the end earlier, about the wider Kent and Medway care record, having a very low identifiable number of people who were on that as carers. But where I've seen it work really well in the past is where somebody might come into acute hospitals or something else and they are a carer, and you can look and there's a flag on there. So who is caring for the person who's at home or somewhere else, and they can identify that. So it can be a really positive thing. I think this was like a 5-foot screen, but definitely not. But in terms of practical stuff that people can get involved in, I see them get involved in, which is, yes, in terms of governance groups and meetings and things, but also interview panels for our staff, focus groups, looking at how we deliver. So we've got a volunteer within our organisation who co-delivers training with a member of our team, how to engage with people in your services and improve that engagement. Patient information, and also that we have these quality improvement projects which our staff pick up, and they very much are very proactive in actually this involve people who are participants, people like yourselves or others, in influencing what those projects look like to improve services. We include volunteers and carers in visits that go out and inspect our community hospitals, for example, and there's much more. Just a couple of things which workforce events, we also have a large population of people that we employ. So we do a lot around ensuring that they are really supported in their caring role within the organisation. And have an array of events that happened last year which were delivered with Eastgate Carer support to our staff. And then this year that we're doing a big piece on what your top tips are for unpaid carers in the organisation, which probably replicates out to communities, but it's about wrapping up our workforce as well. And then had a large carers conference last year, and then holding a Have Your Say virtual listening events later this month as well for Carers Week. So they're just a few examples. So that's a bit about my team, but we don't need to look at that for now. But that's it for me. Thank you very, very much.
Great, okay, so we're going to be doing lunch fairly shortly, but we do want to give you the opportunity of putting some questions to the panel here. So first of all, has anybody got a question that they are burning to ask? Just put your hand up, if so. Okay, well, as I'll put some questions on your behalf. If there any, oh, yes, lady here, right, okay.
So the lady from KCC, you mentioned something about a survey. I've never had a survey since I was registered as a carer. So I don't know where you get that from or whatever.
So, does the person you care for,
Can you speak into the microphone, sorry? Just turn it towards you.
does the person you care for have a local authority service?
Yes, I think so.
You have social services involved?
I do now.
You have social services. So the survey sent out annually. It's always a challenge with the carer survey because we have to make sure that we're allowed to send it out to the carer. So we need to have your information on the system because we can't access your information through the person you care for's information on our system. So we don't get the survey out to all of the people that are on our books, which might be why we haven't had the survey. But if you want us to send you the survey and you haven't had it, and actually I would recommend you do because it's quite it's really useful for us because it tells us the things that you might not tell us in a conversation because people sometimes find it easier to write it down. If you talk to Alina or to Jade, who is sitting outside at a desk, and give them your details, they can make sure that you're contacted and we can add your information to our system as a carer and we'll make sure that you get the survey then.
So can I just sort of clarify on that then?
You want to hear from carers, you want them to take part in the survey, but you can't contact carers directly because you haven't got them on the system beforehand.
Well, it's an interesting one. We've got lots and lots of carers on our system. Carers who have told us their information and allowed us to put their information on the system, but because we're not providing a direct chargeable service to somebody, so for example, if Karen's a carer for your husband, and we're providing a service to Karen's late husband, sorry to use exactly that, her late husband, he's on our system, we're providing a service, so we've got a legal interaction with him. We might have provided an assessment for Karen, but we've then provided her with a signposting to a carers organisation to do some work with her. We then close our involvement because we haven't got a legitimate reason to keep her case open on our system. Otherwise it would stay open ad infinitum. And now her husband has sadly passed away. We have no legitimate reason to have her information at all on our system. And we don't know because Karen hasn't told us because she didn't need to. So it's a really difficult one. It's all wrapped up in the legislation around what we're allowed to hold on our system. We can't just keep random people's information on our system ad infinitum. But we do access people with caring organisations as well.
Sorry, could I, sorry, as a carer, could I just come into that? I think if you've been given permission by the carer to hold the information, just because the person being cared for or the carer themselves has been signposted elsewhere, I don't think that's a very good criteria for them then falling out from KCC. I'm afraid I don't understand that.
Sorry, I probably was. So we might still be providing the support to the cared for. They stay open. But if we've signposted you to somewhere else, we won't keep you open because it's very unlikely that you will come back to us at a point later in time when you're no longer a carer and phone us up and say, hey Janice, you know you put me on your system and I gave you permission to put me on your system. I don't need to be there anymore.
I think that's sorry, that sounds like an excuse to me. It's being a little contentious. No, if I can just explain.
Please do.
If you send out an email with a survey in, and that person no longer wants to be contacted, all you need is an unsubscribe button. It's really simple. I think that you are missing, that KCC is missing out a huge portion of people through their decision making to say, well, we're closing that case. I mean, I think it would be interesting, and I don't know how many people are carers for how long. I think that there's faulty thinking there, and that needs to be readdressed.
Very likely, and it would be useful to have those views to input to the way that we work.
Quite.
But once we have finished that interaction, so we might have signposted you to East Kent Carers, and then that actually is the end of our legitimate arrangement with you. Because
Well, then I'd like to challenge
we've
that.
moved you on to an appropriate service. So,
But that
and
person is still a
that's-
carer in Kent.
You're still a carer, but it's the end of our legitimate
Perhaps
arrangement.
perhaps the rest of the panel can come in there. I think that's bizarre.
I'd like to come in if it's okay.
Yeah.
I'd like us to explore what we could do to support the distribution of that survey, because all of the carers in the room receiving a survey under the Community Navigation Service, which is commissioned by yourselves, we would willingly distribute that to the carers for you, and I'm sure you would welcome receiving that. So perhaps that's something we could
It's
explore.
something that we can explore and look at, definitely. And this is the value of an event like this. And I've said when I was speaking earlier on, your comments and views are incredibly important to us. So your view is incredibly important because we have a way of working which actually you're now contesting. Well, maybe you do want your records kept open for a lot longer than we're keeping them open, and we need to take that into account, otherwise there's no point having these sorts of events and listening to you. So it would be useful to have those conversations, Jill, through the strategy group.
Okay, I'm really conscious of time, but I'm going to keep you on the hook just for a couple of moments longer, because part of what David said earlier on when he was talking about his situation with his wife who had MS was that respite is sadly lacking. We also have a question from somebody who written in beforehand to say, are there any local affordable respite places for a few days? There seems to be a real difficult problem around organising respite, residential respite in particular, in advance. Why is that?
Okay, so there's a couple of, I'm going to give a very long answer to that, so I apologise. So the first point, well, let me go back to why is it difficult to arrange respite in advance in a care environment. The reason is because we commission most of our residential or nursing respite from the private and voluntary sector. Mostly from the private sector, but there are some voluntary organisations that run residential and nursing homes. They are private businesses, and in general they do not just keep beds open for respite. And so that if you contact a care home, Sunny Leaves Care Home, they've got 30 beds, and they keep one bed open the entire year for respite, so that you can phone them up and say, I need some respite on the 3rd of August because I'm going on holiday. Do they need to keep that bed then open for the rest of the year and empty, which is a loss of income for them, or do they do it a different way? Does the council commission differently and say, let's block book beds in Sunny Leaves Care Home so that there's some respite beds there available for when they're needed? And that's about the council juggling and working out whether that's the right way to use the council's money. I'm not saying whether it is or it isn't. That is part of the thinking for the residential and nursing home relet that we're currently doing through our commissioning arrangements. And again, we are talking to people about what would make a difference to them and how can we use their influence on the way that we commission.
So coming to this as an outsider, if you like,
Yeah.
if you know that you've got X number of people who want to have respite care, and you're talking about people who are wanting to book a holiday 6 months in advance, is it not possible for the county council to say, right, well, we know that we've got 500 people want to have a week, that means that we could effectively block book 10 beds for an entire year and put people in. You know then that the provider is going to definitely have those spaces. You know then that people are going to use them. Why don't we do that?
As long as they all want it in the same care home, in the same part of Kent.
But if we're talking about people who are wanting to have the respite above all else, would they be prepared to go there? Is that a question worth having? Would you be better off having a specific KCC respite care home that you know that people can use and you've got control over that, rather than putting control into other people who are wanting to...
And that is part of what we're looking at in our residential relet. Our current contract doesn't allow it, and our current contract's been running for, do you know how long it's been running for? No, I don't know how long the current contract. It's a long time, a very long time, because it's been rolled over a few times. But it will be relet next year, and some of those ideas around block booking have been included in the thinking for that contract. I can't say whether it's actually going to be part of it or not at the moment, because that's all got to be built into the tender and procurement rules and things like that.
And you were
But
wanting
affordable, just on the affordable bit, we know that residential nursing care is very expensive in Kent, and we are looking at how to manage the costs of residential. On the subject of respite, because I just wanted to hold on to that just for a moment, we're talking very much and specifically here about respite as somewhere you go for a week or 2 weeks. We're in our consultation with carers, we've been told that actually that's not always what the carer wants in order to have a short break from the carer's role. So what we're looking at, in combination between our home care contract relet and our carers contract relet work that Ben's working on, is how we can tailor those short breaks to the needs of the carer. So that might be so that you can have 2 hours a month to go and get your hair and nails done, or so that you can have 5 hours a week to go and do a round of golf, or something different, so that you can actually have a short break at a time and a way that meets your needs. Now, there are some challenges in that. So we'll be looking at it as part of our carers contract relet, but alongside that is the challenges that our home care providers aren't set up in a way, geared up in a way that delivers that sort of work. So we need to work with our home care providers to help them to change the way that they think and the way that they deliver support to actually make that real. And this is something that carers are supporting us with, and it's something that is a bit of a journey, which isn't an expression I like, but it is. It's something that we are looking at. So we're not just looking at how can we make sure that there is respite available when you need to, if you want to go somewhere so that you can go away, but also how can we look at something that's more aligned to daily life and regular breaks.
So Adam, you were wanting to jump in there, weren't you?
There's also a question on the floor that's been here for a while.
Okay, good.
I was just going to say, I am a carer, and I know that if I was able to book a week, any time of the year, if I was given a calendar, you don't like when you book your holiday, you get to choose the dates. If I was given that I could have, say, a week in October or a week in November, if I saw the calendar and saw when it was available, I know that I would book that week because I would have something to look forward to. I would have that ability to go away and think, right, I haven't got to worry about my father. I can book in advance, the same as you book when you book a holiday. It's the same looking on the calendar, seeing when it's available. So I think saying, oh, we need to think about this, if you gave the carers a calendar to book, you'd get it. And there are other organisations where you can get those 2 hour slots. There are other organisations that you can get a morning. So I think that from the council's point of view, I think you should be looking more at giving us block bookings. We don't need to have that couple of hours because there are organisations out there that can give us that volunteer to do that, the voluntary organisations. We need the council to look more at giving us a good break, to give us a holiday, because for me, I have to rely on my 2 children to look after my dad when I want to go away. One lives in Gloucester, she has to come down for the week. She has to then work from home, and I have a daughter that has got 2 young children. She then has to share that responsibility with her, and it's a nightmare trying to organise a week off for me to have a break. I don't need a 2 hour break because I can disappear with my dogs, but I need to know that I have got a holiday to look forward to.
I think it's a pretty strong message, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's something that we have to look at and accept, and it will be something that is being thought about. It is currently being thought about in the recommissioning of the residential and the nursing. We also do have in-house providers, so we've got Westview, Westbrook and Gravesham Place, who do provide pre-booked respite for periods of time, and they're Kent County Council owned facilities. So there is that ability, it's just restricted in the amount of it that we've got.
And also, I think you mentioned about travelling as well. If I know it's a safe place for my dad,
I would take him to Dartford. I live in Thompson. I'll take him to Dartford. I'll take him to anywhere that I know that he'd be looked after. So I think the where you want it is a bit irrelevant. It's where they're going to be cared for safely and give them that break.
So, Adam, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, just from the other side of the table, that my experience with my mum was that she just my dad had injured himself caring for her, and she very got some respite very quickly and not very far away. But in that building, they'd shut off a whole top floor because they were not getting the funding in to be able to provide. So I think there's cross things that you're going to have a shorter pot of money going forward to be able to provide respite and similar services probably. So I think it's just thinking about that wider discussion around funding, but around, no excuse, but that was what my experience was. It was just a wonderful place and a good place for a period of time. But it was where we were being told, what's in the rest of this building? And they said, oh, we had to just close off all the beds because our funding has just been cut by our local authority. That was outside of Kent. But
there's a fundamental problem with funding for all of this, isn't there? I mean, I'm sure Karen, Janice, you would much rather be able to spend 3 or 4 times the amount you've got.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and funding is a problem, yeah, and that's one of the reasons why ADAS is doing a lot of work in that space. So ADAS is the Association of Directors of Adult Social Services, so that's a national body. So our Director of Adult Social Services, Richard Smith, feeds into the work that the Director of Adult Social Services does in that space. And I was going to talk about this anyway. The work that they're doing is also thinking about how we have more funding into social services. The budget does not stretch as far as it needs to. The costs of the services that we are providing. When I look at my budget lines, because I have to look at my budget lines sometimes, what I can see is the number of people we're supporting stays pretty much the same, but my spend goes like this. This is my budget line. So my budget line is this hand. And that's not because I'm buying more support, it's because the cost of those services is going up for lots and lots of reasons. And lots of those reasons are not because the providers want more money for what they're doing. There's lots of other costs around the way that the government sorts out and funds social care, the national insurance costs and all sorts of stuff like that.
Sadly, I'd love to go into this for hours, and we potentially could do that later. But just to wrap up this session now, and we're going to have some lunch. I just want to put one question to each person and try and keep your answer as short as possible, please. It's an impossible thing, I know. But if you could change just one thing tomorrow to improve life for unpaid carers, what would that be, Tanya?
I think for Carers Trust, it would be sustainable funding for local carers services, so that local carer services can focus on supporting carers and not thinking about funding constantly. So I would say that for Carers Trust, making sure we have a very solid, strong, good quality local service provision.
Okay, Lauren?
So at Carers UK, I think we'd want to see the National Carer Strategy and the government taking a lead on that. And I think that would just help bring more leadership and coherence to how the government and the authorities can support unpaid carers.
Okay, Janice?
Well, my notes were around, as it so happens, respite, and people being able to access respite in the way that they want to, when they want to, and that would be the one thing that I'd do if I had a magic wand.
Okay, Karen?
Yeah, I'd like a non-means tested carers allowance.
And Adam?
I think it's ensuring that there's a full wraparound care plan for carers alongside the cared for as well, and that's something that can be monitored over a period of time and reviewed. So whether that health condition is okay, or whether or not there's things are escalated that can support it.
Great. Well, all of you on the panel, thank you ever so much for being with us today. They're all going to be around, so collar them, have a chat with them, put your questions to them. I know that they do want to hear what you've got to say and that they do want to try and take things forward in meaningfully useful ways. We're going to call it a day just for the moment. We'll have lunch for half an hour and reconvene at 1:45. We've got a whole bunch of lovely sandwiches and cakes and crisps and things up on the table there, so rush up there, form an orderly queue, and we'll reconvene in half an hour, so thank you. We're a little bit more focused on a specific set of subjects, and I'll introduce the panel in just a couple of moments' time. But before we do that, Jill, once again, would like to say a couple of words.
Thanks. So firstly, just to say thank you very much to our speakers who took part in our panel earlier, but also an apologies to those of you in the room that we ran out of time and overran for questions and answers. So that's a lesson learned for us in terms of needing to allow more time going forward. But what I think we will do, so some people submitted some questions before the day, so we'll be asking all of the panel members to give us their responses to those so that we can share that with you after. And then what struck me was there were some quite key themes coming through from those presentations and some of the questions that did happen in the room. And I think I'd like to work with the Care Advisory Group and colleagues and think about how we might have some more focused and specific discussions going forward about some of those really important topics. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, because I would hate for you to sit here and think, well, we've heard lots of information, but actually we've not had our opportunity to share our views or to raise questions, so that isn't lost on me, and we will think about how we can manage that going forward. Hopefully you have had opportunity, if you've wanted to go and speak to individuals around the room over lunch. I also just wanted to just acknowledge as well, so each of our speakers shared with you different ways that you can get involved in things related to the work that they do, but I just wanted to highlight again that Carer Support East Kent, we will share that information with you regularly through our newsletters, through our social media, through our team members. So don't feel that you need to remember all of those different ways that you can get involved. And part of our role is to make sure that things we hear from you as carers, we feed into those pieces of work as well. So of course, please do get involved directly if you would like to, but also please be assured that we share the things that we hear on your behalf, not in terms of individual circumstances, but collective feedback. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say for now, and I hope that you find this afternoon really useful.
And just following on a little bit, there is a form, I think, or multiple forms on the table. Some of you I can see are filling them in already. If you get the opportunity to do that, these feedback forms, it's valuable in sort of two levels. One, to talk about today as a format and how it works and which bits could work better and what other potential ways there could be of doing it. But secondly, just to really get a good connection with carer support so that you can make sure that you're actually getting out of today the maximum that you can do. So please, if you've got the opportunity to, do take the time to fill in one of those. Right, okay, so on the panel for this bit, we have from Disability Assist, Donna Francis. Hello, Donna. We have Max Korczak. Is that near enough?
Korczak.
There we go, it was dreadful. Korczak, there we go, Max Korczak from Citizens Advice Bureau. And from Geering Solicitors, we have Charlotte Lambert and Stephanie Stocker. And they are, so Charlotte's partner in Wills Tax and Estate Administration, and Stephanie is Associate Solicitor in Wills Tax and Estate Administration. So if there's specific questions that you have around that area, then they're here to be able to answer some of those. So once again, we're going to do our presentations. If we can keep the presentations as tight as we can to allow as much time for questions as possible. Donna, if you would like to go first.
Lovely, I'm going to try to pick her out. Oh, lovely, but it was already there. Sorry. Brilliant. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. It's really good to be here today. Can you all hear me? Yes. Yeah, perfect. So I'm Donna, and I'm the Senior Information Officer at Disability Assist. So I'm just going to talk to you about who we are and what we do and how we may be able to support you or the people that you care for. Yeah, so I've kind of covered that slide already, haven't I? So we're going to talk about who we are, what services we offer, and then obviously I'm aware other people are speaking as well, but hopefully there'll be some time at the end for some questions. So if you've got any questions, just make a note of them. Okay, so Disability Assist is a user-led organisation, a disabled user-led organisation, which means we're run and managed by disabled people for disabled people. So all of our trustees have a disability, and the majority of our staff have a disability or lived experience of caring for somebody with a disability. We cover the whole of Kent. Kent's quite a big county. And we support people aged 18 and over that have a physical disability or a long-term health condition. People really appreciate that we are disabled people supporting other disabled people. You know, we can hear the relief in their voice sometimes when they're dealing with a fellow disabled person, which I'm sure you get when you're being supported by a fellow carer. It really does make a difference. There's an estimated 250,000 people living with a disability or long-term health condition in Kent. I imagine the number may well be bigger than that now, but that's the latest number that we've got. I think I need to go on to my next page. No, I don't. So we have adopted the social model of disability in everything that we do. So this is a way of viewing the world that says that people are not disabled by their impairment, but they're disabled by the barriers in society. So barriers can be physical, like there not being a lift, or not being a slope, or not having accessible toilets, or it can be caused by people's attitudes, so people thinking that disabled people can't do things. So the social model helps us to recognise what those barriers are that make life harder for disabled people. And what we do at Disability Assist is try to remove some of those barriers so that you can have choice and control to lead more independent lives. So we're quite a small team, but we have a team of 4 information officers. So we've got Becky that covers North and West Kent. We've got Hannah that covers East Kent. Liesl is actually our advocate, and we'll come on to that a bit later. Stephen covers mainly East Kent, a bit of everything in Kent actually, it's just not North Kent. And then I manage the team of information officers. So I don't do a lot of the client work, but I do some, and that is mainly in East Kent. When we were formed back in 2002, it was in order to support disabled people to achieve the 12 basic principles or 12 pillars of independent living. And these came from a group of disabled people who said, if we have all 12 of these things, we can then be equal in society and be able to live as full a life as anybody else does. So they are full access to the environment, a fully accessible transport system, appropriate technical aids and equipment, accessible and adapted housing, personal assistance to be able to enable an independent lifestyle, inclusive education and training, an adequate income, equal opportunities for employment, appropriate and accessible information, advocacy, empowering counselling services, and appropriate and accessible healthcare provision. So if we had all those 12 things, then we've got more chance to live equally. We are a long way off on some of those things, but we are making improvements in some. And we are committed to, trying to improve and enable all 12 of those things to be able to be available to us. So we are some way off achieving all of these, but it's important that we continue to strive for equality. So a bit more about, so that's kind of our background, where we come from. A bit more about the services that we offer. So we offer community advocacy, information, advice and guidance, peer support and benefit support. I'm going to go through each one of these separately. So advocacy. So when decisions are being made about us, we don't always feel involved, we don't always feel in control. These decisions could be around health or social welfare, And you know, when we don't feel listened to, that's really hard. When what's important to us isn't being taken seriously by others, or maybe we just don't have the words to say what we think or we feel or want. So advocates take time to understand the situation, explore the options, and help you decide what you want to do and how you want to do it. So advocates support you to look at your choices and reach decisions, but will not make decisions for you, and they'll only take action if you want them to. So we provide community advocacy for people aged 18 and over who have a physical disability or long-term health condition. And so it could be problems with accessing social services, it could be problems accessing health or housing. So they're kind of the main issues that we deal with around advocacy. And our job is to empower you and give you the information that you need to make decisions and take control. Oh yeah, that is right. Sorry, it looks different from that side. We provide information, advice and guidance on issues around independent living. So that could be anything from how to get a wheelchair, how to get support at home, how to get aids and equipment, a blue badge, accessible transport, a whole range of things. And it also includes signposting to other organisations as necessary, because it's really important you are supported by the right organisation. We can give this information direct to people, clients, but also to professional friends, family, and can do this via phone, email, social media, and even the odd letter. We still do get the odd letter. Okay, so we also provide peer support. So this is for people that may not meet our advocacy criteria, but still need that support, maybe to make that phone call, to write that letter, so we can provide support with that. So it's more than signposting, and it's one disabled person supporting the other. It can also include giving encouragement and empowering the disabled person to make the first step themselves. And this has turned out to be our biggest service. We never intended it to be, but it has been, and I can totally understand why. So we provide support around benefits. So there's three main benefits affecting disabled people. Personal independence payment, it says employment support allowance, but lots of people are having to apply for universal credit now, so it's the work capability form that we can help with within the universal credit, and also attendance allowance. So we can support you with filling in those benefit forms listed up there. The forms can be quite confusing and quite hard to fill in. We're very aware of that, so we can support you, or we can actually sit with you and fill the form in with you. We can also support with benefit assessments to help you prepare and then attend that assessment with you should you need us to. And we can also support with appeals and tribunals, so if you don't agree with your benefit decision, you can appeal that, so we can help you through that and help you prepare and then attend that tribunal if we are able and you need us to. And we can also talk about what to expect on the day for both assessments and tribunals. So finally, how can you contact us? Our contact details are on the screen. Don't worry if you can't scribble it all down. I believe in your white bag there should be a disability assist postcard in there. If not, I've got a table over there with some lovely pens and postcards, so please do feel free. Now I'm going to skip that one because we have other presentations here. There you go, I'm seeing your next. Thank you.
Good stuff, Donna, thank you very much. Disability assist. So now, Mags, I won't ruin your surname again, from Citizens Advice Bureau.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me today. My name is Mags. I'm actually from Citizens Advice Planet, rather than from the Citizens Advice Bureau. And there's a very important distinction that I need to explain with that. So Citizens Advice is the national organisation and charity. And their role is policy and strategy. They're a membership organisation which also provides administrative and IT support and governance support. Not a lot of people realise or know that citizens' advice or local offices are actually their own independent charities. So you'll likely find a citizens' advice in most parts of the country, but they're all their own independent charity, and because of that they are responsible for securing their own funding. And unfortunately what that also means is that it's potluck as to what services and projects are running in that area. So I've arrived here from Thanet, so that's within the East Kent region, so we have offices in Margate and in Ramsgate. And in the East Kent region, there are also offices, citizens' advice for Dover and Deal, and also Canterbury, which have offices in Herne Bay and I think Whitstable, but I'm not entirely sure of that. So who are we? I've kind of already explained that, but as a brief history, we were established in September, the National Office was established in September 1939 from the onset of war. And the original remit was to help people who had lost their ration books, who were falling into debt because work had dried up, and also to help with evictions. So really, and evacuations, but apart from the evacuations, our work really has remained the same for the best part of the past 50 years. What we do is that we offer free, confidential and impartial advice to anybody that needs it. We're independent, and what that means is that we're independent of government, and we're here to help people understand their rights, options, especially during difficult times. And in fact, what's lovely to hear from the sessions today are the other organisations where our work overlaps. So we're not in competition with any organisation, we're here to provide as much support as possible. And we are generalists, we're not specialists. So if there is a better organisation that can support and assist you, we will always try to signpost. So, you know, my presence here today is really to build connections with other local organisations in the area and to provide some overlap support where needed. So our core mission is really to help people find a way forward, and that means, excuse my phone's about to fall off the floor, understanding what benefits they're entitled to. It could be dealing with a landlord issue, finding support after relationship breakdown, or understanding the benefits regime. But we also use what we learn from people's experiences to push forward change. And we do that through our casebook system of highlighting important issues that are pertinent in our areas to help influence policy and to make things better for everyone. And that's where National Citizens Advice come in. We feed that information and they look to researching further issues and helping advocate for change at a national level. So some common things that we help support with. So welfare benefits is the biggest area. So that could be explaining what personal independence payment is, who is eligible for it, and also helping complete a form. Also things like universal credit, carers allowance, attendance allowance, and on and on and on. But we also help people manage debt. Debt support is highly regulated, or debt advice is highly regulated. So what we do in our local branch is that we can offer a debt assessment, and then we can signpost to other organisations that are accredited for full debt support, so seeking breathing space from creditors and helping to resolve those debt issues that people may face. But there's also things like housing issues, so that could be if a landlord has notified an individual about that they're asking them to vacate their premises, and actually whether that eviction is valid notice, actually have they been served the correct papers, is everything have all the I's been dotted and the T's been crossed. But it's also understanding things like employment rights and handling consumer or legal problems. And carers often face challenges in several of these areas all at once, and we're here to help untangle some of those issues. So how do we deliver help? Okay, well, depending where you're from. Now, actually, I'll just take either a show of hands or a vocalisation. Who here has travelled from Ashford today? So who's local to the area? Okay, thank you. And who has travelled from Thanet, within the Thanet area? Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. And who else? Anyone from Canterbury, that area? Wonderful. And Dover and Deal, that area? Okay. All right, so we've got a broad cross-section. Okay, wonderful, because actually some of the things I'm going to speak about are more relevant than others. Okay, so how do we offer support rights? So face-to-face is very common. So in Thanet we have a branch in Ramsgate and also in Margate. Our Ramsgate branch offer drop-in sessions 3 days a week, or twice in the morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and there's a new service offered for Wednesday afternoons. But there's also, and that's no appointment is necessary for that. So different branches will offer different services. We also have community outreach, and so we have a specific project funded by the National Lottery where we have 2 individuals, both called Sam, which is easy to remember, and they do advice, sort of drop-in advice sessions at venues across Thanet, so to help suit different people's schedules. Again, that's drop-in, so no appointment is needed, and that information is always on our website and is amended each month. There's also the online advice. Now, Citizens Advice run a very, very good and comprehensive advice website. The website address is up there, so citizensadvice.org.uk, and you can find information there 24 hours a day on anything to do with family benefits, any housing. And that's easily accessible. But if you want to phone up, there's also a national advice line, although that only operates until between 9 and 5 p.m. So I'm very conscious that a lot of people don't necessarily have access to the computer at home or the internet, or if they do, it's on their smartphone. So there's a telephone number which I haven't provided, but if you want to know it, I can provide it to you, which you can call up and find information about your local Citizens Advice service there. And then there are also home visits that take place. We offer home visits in Thanet, although capacity is very tight, but we can do it. But within other regions, I'm unsure how that, whether that operates, but it is possible. And so I've put the website addresses up there for the local Citizens Advice branches. So we've got for Thanet, Canterbury, Dover, Deal and District. If you do have access to the internet, you can find all the information about opening times and how to access their services through there. And specifically for carers, the sort of the work that we do often overlaps. So we know that you juggle a lot, and there's a high risk of carers falling through the gaps. We see it every week in, week out. So we help carers understand if they're eligible for carers allowance or any other benefits. We support carers who are trying to balance paid work with caring responsibilities, and we can guide people through getting breaks, understanding their rights as carers, and connecting them to wider support services as well. And I wanted just to give you a sort of a real life example of things that we do. So somebody that we're supporting at the moment had their carers allowance suddenly stopped for no explanation. And despite their numerous communication, they'd contacted the DWP, they won't get an answer. And there's an overlap between carers allowance and universal credit. because carer's allowance is actually considered income. And so if it's considered income, then if you're applying for universal credit or you receive universal credit, what that means is that your universal credit is adjusted accordingly. And this individual is who's receiving carer's allowance. They're a carer for their spouse and on universal credit. And their carer's allowance just suddenly stopped at the beginning of the year and they couldn't get an answer. So they attended our office, one of our advisors contacted the DWP, couldn't get an answer. Contacted Universal Credit. Oh no, the system tells us that they're still in receipt of carer's allowance, but they're not getting any money, so they're not. Ah, okay. Well, but we're a different department. We don't speak to the carer's allowance unit. And you think, if that's frustrating, we share the frustration, we know it, it's very Kafkaesque, we get it. And so we had enough, and actually we contacted our local, we have within Thanet, we have a contact at the job centres, part of the DWP, and he said, oh yeah, no, I can see, yes, it's coming up that their carer's allowance, they're in receipt of it, but we can't do anything our side. So we tried all possible avenues, and actually what we've done for this individual is we've drafted a letter and we've communicated to our local MP. So we've got quite a good relationship with our local MP, and we've drafted that letter because when the things get complex like that, there's things that we can help with, and sometimes citizens' advice can move things forward just through our involvement. We do have hotlines to some organisations. But on this occasion, if we can't resolve it, and we need to resolve it, we refer it to the MP's office for their assistance, because they have the speed hotline to get things resolved with the DWP. So that's currently in situ. And on top of that, sort of some peripheral support, we can offer blue badges. So every organisation that can help with a blue badge is always good, because that's digital. It's online now. So what we can do, we have computers in our offices. If you can't do it at home, we're very happy to be contacted and to assist with that. And likewise, that can also be conducted during a home visit if there's any capacity to do it. And then how to access our services. Oh, I did put the telephone number on there. Brilliant. Okay. Right, so I've put the websites again for the different districts that Citizens Advice operated, and then there's the advice line number there, and that's a national number. If you're phoning from a mobile phone, it will ask you for your postcode. However it does that, I think they just ask you to put the numbers of your postcode, and somehow it transfers you, or could transfer you. But if it's during the sort of 9 to 5 opening times, it could go to anywhere in the country, and someone will be there to help support or answer a general query. And again, the website I've put there, so that's citizensadvice.org.uk if you have access to the internet and just need to get direct information. So, on a final note, final thoughts and questions. There we go. As I said, we're free, we're impartial, and we're independent of government, and we just offer practical help for real problems. So we're there to sort of help untangle, and we see people day in, day out who are so overwhelmed and stressed, and everything falls to them at once. And sometimes actually just need someone to listen and to help untangle your problems because you don't know where to start, and we can help you do that. So special relevance to carers, and also we're here to help. And I've put the email address for our local office there, so anyone in Thanet, you're very welcome to contact us on our inquiries line, and we'll get back to you at any point. But thank you very much for listening.
And just before we go on to the next bit, hands up if you find dealing with the DWP easy and straightforward. Hands up if you found it difficult, complicated, annoying. Yeah, okay. So I think
there'd be another question: how many times have you had to go to tribunal just to get the DWP to do the right thing?
There you go. So our next pair of speakers are both from Geering Solicitors. Charlotte Lambert, who is partner with Wills Tax and Estate Administration, and Stephanie Stocker, who is Associate Solicitor wills, tax and estate administration, to give us a bit of an overview around some of the legal stuff around all of those things, the money side of stuff, and then we will give the opportunity for you to ask some direct questions. So please, Charlotte first.
I am actually Sarah.
Oh, Sarah, I do apologise.
Charlotte is a lovely lady in our marketing department, so I think that's where the confusion has come. So, Sarah Geering, I'm a partner here in the Ashford branch of Girlings. This is my colleague Stephanie Stocker. Girlings is truly an East Kent firm. We have branches in Herne Bay and Canterbury and Ashford, but originally was very much actually more Thanet-based, Ramsgate, Margate, Broadstairs, I'm not entirely sure there, but we cover basically mid to East Kent. And Stephanie and I work in the private client department, as Rob has said, and we do deal with wills and estates and lasting powers of attorney, which is what we're here mainly to talk to you about today, although of course we will take any questions on any other related matter. So, lasting powers of attorney. I'm sure many of you already have perhaps these in place, but perhaps not all of you, and it may be helpful for us to go through and explain exactly what they are and why it's a good idea to have one. So, they are legal documents that ensure that somebody is able to carry out decisions or acts on behalf of somebody who is not able, for whatever reason, to do it themselves. In the old days, you used to know your bank manager and probably everybody else that worked there, and they might go, oh, yes, you know, and they would let things happen. Nowadays, it doesn't work that way. For a start, you're lucky sometimes to be able to talk to anybody. And secondly, of course, for quite correct reasons, banks have to be very, very careful who they speak to. Not just banks, but even if you want to pay your gas bill on behalf of somebody, they won't talk to you unless you've got a lasting power of attorney, LPA, I'm going to call them from now on, in place. So it is a way of giving official permission for somebody to speak on behalf of the person who needs that. So there are two types. There's a property and finance one that I've just been referring to, but also the health and welfare LPA, which is entirely different, works in a different way, although very similar to set up. You don't have to have both. It's not necessary for somebody to have both types, but it is usually sensible to do so. So, why do you need a property and finance lasting power of attorney? Well, it can be used. Some people think it can only be used if somebody has lost the mental capacity to deal with matters for themselves, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be used simply because somebody perhaps is unable to go to the bank, unable perhaps to speak on the phone, or just in some way would like somebody else to deal with matters for them. Quite often elderly people will say, oh, do you know what, everything's online these days, I can't work all of that, I just can't do it, I just want my family or whoever to deal with things for me. And in that circumstance, a lasting power of attorney is also extremely useful. We should all have one. Give you a couple of examples here. So, Jack, he's gone up that hill, he's fallen down and broken his leg, he can't get to the bank. Well, if he's got a lasting power of attorney in place, then whoever is his attorney can help him and can deal with that for him. Jill, quite young, she's had an accident, unforeseeable, she's in a coma, and the final car payment is due on her PCP. And if she doesn't make it, then the company is going to take the car away. And if she's got a power of attorney in place, someone can deal with that for her. If not, it could mean that really, it's really unhelpful, but yes, the car might be taken away. That's actually a true life story that happened to a relative of one of our colleagues. The final, obvious, easy one, Jack, he has dementia, he can't deal with his finances. Well, if he has an LPA in place, then it can be done for him. Just a word before I pass on to Steph about capacity, which is of course something that you have to have in order to make a lasting power of attorney. But legal capacity is a different thing from medical capacity, and there are certain specific questions that enable us, if we're dealing with it, to tell whether somebody is able to make one. And even though somebody may have a diagnosis of dementia, it doesn't mean they can't make a lasting power of attorney necessarily. Steph.
Okay. So I'm going to cover health and welfare, lasting powers.
Go that one.
So unlike property and finance, the health and welfare lasting power can only be used if the donor has lost capacity. So the property and finance, like Sarah touched on, you can use it with permission of the donor. Health and welfare is only when capacity has been lost. So the idea behind it is that the appointed attorneys can make the decisions and can portray or the donor's wishes to the person that needs to know at a time that the donor no longer can do that. Although some care professionals, medical professionals, will listen to sort of next of kin or family members, potentially carers, they don't necessarily have to, and that can cause frustrations, it can cause issues. With a lasting power of attorney in place, if you provide that document to the care professional, medical professional, etc., you then, as an attorney, have permission to deal with those issues. You will be listened to. In that kind of situation, it's a priceless document. Speeds things up, is the hope. Some examples again, we go back to Jill this time. She's on life support. Jack is her attorney. Doctors don't want to listen to him about him conveying wishes to them. Jill's own wishes that she can no longer convey, they can't listen to him or they choose not to. Jack then reveals the lasting power and suddenly the tables have turned and they will listen to him, which at the end of the day, he is conveying what Jill wanted. Again, lasting power of attorney, priceless in that situation. Another example, so Jack now, he's got dementia, he's been in hospital. His wish was to always be cared for at home. The family, they're happy to look after him, but social services think he should go into a care home. With the lasting power of attorney, more likely that these attorneys are going to be able to step in and say, look, no, here's our lasting power, Jack wanted this, and they'll be listened to. It's a legal document. The attorneys now can stand in the position that Jack no longer can and convey his wishes. On another note, we've got Jill, who's now better. She's out of her coma. She wants her daughter to go with her to the GP and for her daughter to speak to her GP on her behalf. GP potentially won't listen, even though Jill is sat there, won't listen to the daughter because he or she can't legally do that. You might get a friendly GP, they might be willing to do it, but if you've got your lasting power of attorney there, suddenly again, tables have turned, the daughter will be listened to. Again, another reason they're priceless.
I expect some of you have perhaps come across that, perhaps not, that sometimes it's not uniform. Some even sort of talking, care homes or will accept, will talk to relatives. Others, because they want to make sure that they're doing the right thing and speaking to the right person, won't. So they are becoming more and more needed. So what happens if there isn't one in place? And of course we spoke about capacity. If capacity has gone, then it isn't possible for somebody to put one of these in place. Well, then you can't make one, and the family then has to go through a procedure to enable them, doesn't have to be family actually, but whoever, in order to deal with things for the person. And this is done by what's known as a deputyship order, and I don't know if anybody here has got experience of a deputyship order. Yeah, they're not fun, are they? No. It takes a very long time to get one, and the procedure is incredibly complex, as seems to be the case with all the forms that we're talking about. It's a complex procedure, and it's also expensive. To make a lasting power of attorney, there is a registration fee of £82 per document, but with a deputyship order, I believe it's £403. Plus, you will need a solicitor or somebody to help with that, because it's not possible. Well, good luck if you can do it yourself. It is really complex. So, a deputyship orders I've written here are very, very slow. They are. A health and welfare deputyship order is quite rare. It's usually the financial ones that are granted. You can do powers of attorney yourself. You can go online to the government website, type in, make a lasting power of attorney, and it will come up with the procedure. It is. There is a guide. You have to follow it step by step, but if you follow it step by step and make sure you do everything in the right order and people don't sign things out of order, you'll be fine. A lot of people do come to us for them because people say, I can't, I'm not very IT literate, or it's complex. It's not that it's complex, it's just that the Office of the Public Guardian is very particular, shall I put it that way, and it isn't always obvious what you have to do. But I'm not here to push solicitors doing it, actually quite the opposite. I'm here to say that that is available to you. I don't know if that's something that Citizens Advice assist with, or do you tend to refer?
We tend to refer to direct people to go to a solicitor because of the issue to do with capacity, and often we can't decide if the person's not there, if the donor's not there.
And Donna, is that something you assist with at all?
No.
So as part of the application, you do need somebody to really confirm that the person who's making it is making it legally, that they have the legal capacity to do that. And the form takes you through that. So I'm going to pass back to Steph for the procedure.
So, putting a lasting power of attorney in place, it's the donor, and that's the key thing. The donor is the person that's giving the power to the attorneys. The donor must make the decision as to who they want to appoint. They can be friends, they can be family. You could appoint solicitors if you didn't have anyone, normally for the property and finance only, because unfortunately we do only work 9 till 5. So we're not available on a weekend, so health and welfare, it doesn't necessarily work. But 9 times out of 10, the donor is going to appoint family and friends. Once they've decided on their attorneys, they can choose up to 4. Always sensible to appoint at least more than one, because if you've only got one attorney and something happens to that one appointed attorney, the lasting powers of attorney that were in place are now void. New ones have got to be put in place. The donor may no longer have capacity, and then we're looking towards the deputyship application that ideally we want to avoid. There's a form for each type, so 2 separate forms, and everyone involved, so the donor and the attorneys, must sign. As Sarah touched on, a certificate provider is also needed, so that is the person that will confirm that the donor has the right capacity to put the lasting power in place. They understand what the form is, they trust who they're appointing, there's no undue influence, etc. So you can have a solicitor to do that. You could have your GP if you can get in touch with them, or someone that has known the donor for at least 2 years. They could also be the certificate provider. So once everyone's signed, and in a very particular order, again, like Sarah said, it is all online, but that order must be followed to a T if you don't want to have too much trouble with the OPG, the Office of Public Guardian, at the other end. We do have a lot of people doing them themselves, And it's not always the form that trips people up. It normally is dealing with the Office of the Public Guardian. Probably a bit like the DWP, it's another government department, and they can be, like Sarah said, pedantic is a nice way to put it. A line outside of a box could mean that it's returned and needs to be re-signed, and that's no exaggeration. So they are painful at times. What else? So, linking back to certificate provider, the certificate provider can be solicitor, GP, someone who's known you or Donna for over 2 years, but could not be one of the attorneys named in the document, a member of the family, so including partners, unmarried for example, could not be a business partner or a care home employee. So that's just something to remember. Once everyone has signed the form, and I'm going to repeat it again in the correct order, then it can be sent off to the Office of the Public Guardian for £82 per document. There are allowances made, I believe, and that's another document to read through, the fine print online. Not always the easiest thing to apply for, but worth looking into. And currently, once you've sent it off, it's taking 2 to 3 months for the lasting power to be returned and become useful. So once it's registered, you can use it. The idea is that you do them as soon as possible, and if they're not needed right now, they sit in a drawer until they're needed, but at least they're there and ready and waiting. Now I'll pass back to Sarah.
So just finally, just looking at if you are an attorney, well, what's your role? What are your responsibilities? So really, going back to thinking what Dawn was saying, Donna. Sorry, Donna.
People often call me Dawn. I don't want to be connected in the brain somewhere.
It must be. And this is something we were talking about the disability advocates and the way that they, their responsibilities and the way that they will act. It's very similar here with an attorney, and it's covered by the Mental Capacity Act, and it is a legal responsibility. So attorneys have to assume that a donor can make their own decisions unless it's been established that they can't, and they have to help the person make their own decisions as much as possible. If somebody makes an unwise decision, it's not the same as not being able to make a decision. And finally, and this is obvious, but the attorney obviously must always act in the best interest of the person that they are acting for. The will and a lasting power of attorney are different documents. People quite often say, oh no, but you're in my will, or when somebody dies, they're quite say, oh well, I'm an attorney, so that's fine, I can manage everything. No, a lasting power of attorney finishes when somebody dies, and the will then takes over from that point. That's just a point there to make. Practical considerations, just to finish on. Keep finances separate from your own. That could mean a separate account, separate bank account, and that's probably the most simple way of dealing with things. Of course, you would have access to the person's bank account, but in terms of anything else, just keep everything very separate. Definitely keep all receipts. Make sure you keep records of everything. Keep records of any gifts that you might make on behalf of the person who has given you that power, and also the reasoning behind it, just in case in the future that becomes relevant. If you're concerned about the way that somebody is dealing with somebody else's affairs, so you think, oh, I'm not sure that attorney is following the rules, then the Office of the Public Guardian will help and they will investigate. But basically, just follow the rules, do use common sense and follow the rules and everything will be fine. Thank you.
So we haven't got very long for questions, but I'm sure there will be some. Lady there in the front there.
Questions here. Do you deal with discretionary trust funds?
Yes, just the question was, do we deal with discretionary trust funds? And yes, complex area, but yes, we do.
What did you say the cost was to put all that together?
For lasting powers of attorney, so there is a registration fee which is charged by the Office of the Public Guardian, which is £82 per document. Okay, it obviously is us or any other solicitors would have a fee on top of that.
And how many pages would you need to have a basic document?
There is a prescribed document. It is a form. So there are
I think
15
and there's 20 including the registration.
Yes, for each 15 sheets of paper or sections.
So it's £82 per sheet of paper?
No, per document. So there's 2 documents, one for property and finance, which consists of 15 sheets, which costs £82. One for the health and welfare is the same.
And can I just, my understanding is there's 2 different sort of kinds of the way that the attorneys are set up. One where if you have a number of attorneys, siblings say, that they all have to agree before anything happens, and one where the independent attorneys can make decisions. So what's the difference between those two?
There are different ways that attorneys can act if you've got more than one. One is called jointly and severally, and that means that people can act independently or together. Now, of course, getting agreement is a good idea. If you select jointly, which says everybody has to agree everything, you run into a problem because if somebody is unavailable to make that decision or has died, you can't act and the power of attorney is useless. You can say that some decisions have to have joint agreement. So you could say, for example, if you're going to sell the house, everybody has to agree that. But other decisions, somebody can carry it out on their own. For practical reasons, we always advise jointly and severally, which means either acting together or independently, just because otherwise it tends to be unworkable.
Can a husband and a wife, husband and a wife,
yes,
does one need LPA to assist the other?
Yes, it sounds daft, but yes. And we would always advise that you don't just have your husband or wife, you have somebody else as well. Otherwise, if the first person dies, the second person hasn't got anyone. So yes.
I see. Okay, thank you.
David?
Okay, thank you, Sarah and Steph, for your presentation, which brings back certain painful memories of having to apply for lasting power of attorney for my wife, which I did have. And all of it that you say rings absolutely true with my experience, which I just shared. Firstly, just to share with other people, it was really valuable. That I just echo that advice. Dave mentioned it earlier as well. It's a little bit daunting when you start off on that journey, but it is valuable. It did prove itself in time. You do make a useful point about, which fooled me, doesn't last after the person was deceased. Just bear that in mind. I thought it probably did. I was thinking, I've got lasting power of attorney. Oh no, that's no good. I also fell foul of the Office of the Public Guardian. Didn't do things in quite the right order. I did it myself. I think you can do it yourself. I fell foul of them. I disputed with them and pointed out that their guidance was misleading, and they did kind of accept that and gave me a free go for second time round. So it was valuable. I just endorsed that. And just in terms of, you were talking, there's a separate point about bank accounts. What I found after my wife died was very useful. We had joint accounts, so the account it automatically reverted to my name. That was all very straightforward. Thank you.
Gentleman in the back. We have a daughter with Down syndrome. Should she have the authority to be able to make the power of attorney, or does, because of mental capacity, she's not considered?
Okay, it depends on the individual cases, obviously, but in order to have capacity, you have to understand the purpose of the document. In other words, if we're assessing, we would say, why do you want to do this? And the person will typically say, because I want my family to be able to help with certain things. So it depends on the level of understanding, but if that understanding is in place, then there's no reason why not.
She would sign it.
Yeah.
In authority. Yeah. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, as a parent carer, we're looking at doing that, because I too have a young adult with Down syndrome. Once you set one up, as the parents get older, can you add power of attorney to?
No, you'd have to do another. So you'd have to do it again. If somebody can no longer act, that's why it's better to add, to include more people. What if you haven't got other people? Then there may be a professional that you can include in there. But to be of best use, you want to make sure that it's a document that's going to last.
Just wanted to ask, the power of attorney, can you use that on, if say your child's in hospital and they're mentally ill, and they say that the hospital staff say, right, they're not capable, would that work? Like the Mental Health Act thing?
Yes.
Would I have, like as his mum, could I use that to say, no, actually, I disagree, I want to take him home or whatever?
It's a difficult scenario, the scenario that you're mentioning. First of all, would they be old enough? You have to be 18 to make one.
21, yeah.
Yes. So, and in those circumstances, you've then got the legal power, as long as that's being given legally, yes. And if the person hasn't got capacity, for whatever reason, then yes, that would work for you.
Thank you.
One more?
With regards to that question, as I understand it, power of attorney can kick in and then step back again, so you can have a temporary need. It doesn't mean that then you take over all decision making forever after. It's just that temporary period. Like for example, if your child's unable, that they think that then you can speak on their behalf until they can resume having capacity.
Yeah, that's an important point. Did everyone hear that? So it doesn't have to be, it doesn't mean that once you've got the document or the document starts to be used, power is used, that's it forever. It's piecemeal. It's used for particular decisions. It's decision by decision, so thank you.
Can I ask, please, because I've got the mic.
Yeah.
So, I've been sitting for a while with it. I'm a parent of a young adult with complex, in inverted commas, complex needs, learning disability. Would that be better to be doing an RPA under a solicitor? The young person I'm caring for, it has had previous problems with capacity. Would that be a better scenario to come? What I want to know is, what scenario would we come to the solicitor or should we do it ourselves, or how could you help?
I would say that if there's an issue, if there have been issues over capacity like that, you would need a capacity assessment, and there are organisations who will carry that out. And that is a separate thing, really, from actually doing the process. But sorry, go on. Okay. Then in that case, possibly it would be a sensible idea to have a professional providing the certificate and dealing with that. Yes. Yeah.
Can I ask a question,
Yes.
which is that how do you approach a situation where there isn't a capacity assessment because the person is deemed too difficult to deal with to obtain a capacity assessment for whatever reason, so they are left with presumed capacity but may not be acting in their own best interests and maybe putting themselves at risk?
I think that's a little complex for me to answer. I'm sorry, because that's more about how one would deal with it. I think we're going into the next sort of range. I'm sorry,
no,
not to.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a difficult area.
Essentially, we ran into a situation where the local authority attempted to assess capacity and weren't able to. So then stepped away.
Yeah. I think if it's in place, that's one thing, but I think it's a little difficult for me to answer, but I will chat to you on
Thank you.
That's yes. Hello.
We've got lasting power of attorney for my parents, my dad, and you said it ends when he dies.
Yes.
Yeah, it ends when they die. We would sort of advise by his care home that we would still be the going forward after he died, and that when we was out of the country they couldn't tell anybody else that he died, and we'd have to be told first. So does it end at the minute they die, or the minute the attorney's told?
No, it ends at death.
Yeah.
But then what would take over is either somebody's will, or if there is no will, then the fact that somebody is next of kin.
So their choice of saying no, we can't tell anybody else until we've told you, is their own sort of guidance.
It sounds like that.
Okay. Thank you.
We could probably do this session for another hour. Sadly, we'll have to draw it to a close there. But that's been really interesting. I hope there's been some useful stuff that's come out of that for you. Obviously, Sarah is here and happy to have a chat with people. You can find Girling's number in the phone book if you want to have a professional consultation as well, obviously. But for all of our panellists for this session, Donna Francis from Disability Assist, thank you very much, and Max Korczak from Citizens Advice Planet, thank you very much, and also Sarah and Stephanie from Geering Solicitors, thank you all very much. So we're sort of drawing things to a close a little bit, but I just want to sort of let you know before we do the next video bit that there is going to be a draw for some Eastwell Manor spa vouchers. Ooh. So I'll just dangle that before you as a carrot. That will be the last thing that we do today. But I think for the moment it's music for well-being. Is this correct? Right. There's Mr. Music for Wellbeing. Great stuff. Come in. Take the floor, sir.
Hello, I'm just going to sort some things out. Can anyone help me hand out some things? How long have I got, by the way? Quarter now. There might not be enough for one. Phil, you're going to sing, yeah? Well, you don't have to sing. My name's Phil. I work for an organisation called Music for Wellbeing, often music for the number 4 wellbeing. There's a website, musicforwellbeing.org.uk, and we run music and singing groups for all sorts of people all across Kent. It's kind of based on the premise off the back of lots of research that music and singing in particular, and group singing in particular, is clinically proven to. I mean, it's a nice thing to do. I mean, sometimes it's also a terrifying thing to do. I appreciate that as well. So, so join in with as much or as little as you want to. But it's clinically proven group singing to help people's well-being, but also to clinically improve people's symptoms living with all sorts of different conditions. So we work specifically with people living with Parkinson's, people living with dementia. We've worked with people with forms of COPD, lung diseases of all sorts. And there's actual kind of hard clinical proof that that singing can, the way it kind of uses the brain and the body and everything, it can sort of improve symptomatically, kind of improve symptoms of living with certain conditions. So this will be kind of a slightly rushed, informal session of the type of thing that we might do with singing groups across Kent. Join in with as much or as little as you want. I might explain a little bit as I go along, just because this is a slightly strange conference-y environment to be in, and I feel like that might benefit. But you do be offended or take it to heart. So yeah, I think that's enough said. We'll always start a session with a kind of slight physical warm-up, so if you feel like you want to do as much of this as you can, you kind of shake your hands. Imagine, how long have you been in this room for? Hours. so probably you've got quite in a position. Have a stretch. This is where you can make any noises, voluntary or involuntary, you want. That stretching kind of can lead to, and down carefully, avoiding. Give your faces a bit of a kind of wake up. you can look one way and maybe smile sweetly at the neighbour that you've been sat next to ignoring for a few hours.
Excuse me.
And just do that both ways. Lovely. And then again, just kind of shake from fingers. We do a lot of movements in sessions, both kind of like micro movement, you do that, micro movements and kind of micro motor movements and grand motor movements, such as this. If you want to shake your legs, you can shake your legs as well. Let's go all the way down. I'll keep an eye on the clock. It's nice to know that you're all kind of stuck here till you find out who wins the I'm in a weird tune. Sorry about that. So I say join in with as much or as little as you want. You can just sit quietly and listen if you want to. But have a big breath outwards. Try and kind of center yourself on your chairs a bit. You can kind of just sit forward, sit upright. And then breathing in. And then just have a long, low hum. It can be any note you like. It can be a kind of rumble, grumble, any sound. So just hum to yourself gently. And just try and use up all your breath. Keep relaxed. And then breathe when you need to. Have another little hum to yourself quietly. Might be a bit higher, might be a bit louder. I'm going to start humming a tune, which I hope you'll know. So just join in when you recognise it. It just goes. Just humming. Beautiful. It is alright to applaud yourselves. Let's try this. Here we go. This is a song you might not know. It's a song called Liza Jane. Do you know that? An American folk tune. You'll pick it up. It's fine. It goes, I know a girl that you don't know, little Liza Jane. Sing that. I know a girl that you don't know, little Liza Jane. I'll show you again. go down a little bit. It's still a bit early, isn't it? I know a girl that you don't know, little Liza Jane. Then it goes, way down south in Baltimore, little Liza Jane. I think geographically it's a bit questionable, but there we go. Way down south in Baltimore, little Liza Jane. And finishes, so it goes, I know a girl that you don't know, little Liza Jane. Way down south in Baltimore, little Liza Jane. Then you just go, whoa, Eliza, little Liza Jane. Try that. Oh, Eliza, little Liza Jane. Then you go, oh, Eliza, little Liza Jane. Oh, Eliza, little Liza Jane. Easy enough? It's kind of like football chant at the end. I know a girl, so it goes, I know a girl that you don't know, little Liza. Way down south in Baltimore, little Liza Jane. Oh, Eliza, little Liza Jane. Oh, Eliza, little Liza Jane. Good. So we do lots of songs in sessions usually that are very quick to learn like that, and everyone learns them. You can learn it in minutes, and then repeat them. But this one is scientifically proven, yet to be peer reviewed. If you throw your arms in the air when you sing the O, it sounds a lot better. You can prove this, yeah. So it goes, I know a girl that you don't know, little Liza Jane. Way down south in Baltimore, little Liza Jane. And you go, whoa, Eliza, little Liza Jane. Again, whoa, Eliza, little Liza Jane. So as well as kind of making everyone possibly feel slightly foolish or really excited, again, we're combining grand motor movements with singing, and what the brain, if you see a brain when you're doing stuff like this in a one of those scanner things, it's kind of lit up, both sides are really lit up, and it's just kind of alive with them. It's great. It's very good for you. So try that again. I know a girl. I know a girl that you don't know, little Liza Jane. Way down south in Baltimore, little Liza Jane. And whoa, Eliza, little Liza Jane. Whoa, Eliza, little Liza Jane. And then what we do, because we're innately competitive, is we split into two teams. And we're going to go, I know a girl that you don't know, I know a girl that you don't. You go, oh, Eliza. And your jobs are to catch someone on the other team's eye as you throw your arms in the air, because then what they'll do is they'll do this. Okay, so you're first, you're second. Stare the other team down if you can. 1, 2, over here. I know a girl that you don't know. You don't know. Way down south in Baltimore. Way down south in Jane. Oh, Eliza. Oh, Eliza. And again. I know a girl that you don't know. I know a girl that you don't know. Way down south in Baltimore. Way down south in Baltimore. Oh, Eliza. Oh, Eliza, little Liza Jane. Little Liza Jane, you finished with me. Very good, you get the idea anyway, very good. But I think there was too much looking at me going on. Not enough looking at each other. Let's, just because we've handed these books out, hopefully everyone can see one. These books are actually made for another charity called Living Lively, and I've just kept them and I keep using them. So, not strictly speaking music for wellbeing material, but it's mine now. So let's just sing a song from here. So this to give an example of the type of songs we might sing. Where is it? Let's do on page 6 in these books. Can everyone see one of these books that wants to? Page 6 is a bit of Everly Brothers. It's just a... I just thought you'd probably know it. Do you know it? Dream, 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 dream. It's one. If does anyone like singing harmonies in here? Any big singers? Because you can harmonise. You do the Everly Brothers harmony. So they go. The tune goes dream, dream, dream. You go dream, 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 dream. You choose. Go high or go low. Or go high, go low, or go home. Don't go home. Let's just go for it from the top. Because I think you'll know. 1, 2, 3, out. Dream, 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 dream. Dream, dream, dream when I want you. In my arms when I want you. And all your charms whenever I want you. All I have to do is dream. Dream, dream, dream when I feel blue. In the night when I need you. To hold me tight whenever I want you. All I have to do is dream. I can make you mine, taste your lips of wine anytime, night or day. Only trouble is, gee whiz, I'm dreaming my life away. I need you so, and I could die of you so. And that is why whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream. Dream, 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 dream. I can make you mine, taste your lips of wine anytime, night or day. Only trouble is, gee whiz, I'm dreaming my life away. I need you so, and I can die of you so. And that is why whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream. Dream, 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 dream. Dream, keep dreaming. Dream. Get quieter. Keep dreaming. Just fade out. It's a fade out. Well, thank you everyone that stuck with me to the end. That's what they used to have to do before they invented the volume knob. So they used to have to just sing quieter and quieter. How long have I got? Just 5 minutes or something now, maybe? Yeah, something like that? Great, okay, well let's just do one more. You can throw those books out the place now. So, yes, we do all sorts of songs, sometimes things that are slight kind of sequential songs are very good when you're remembering a sequence, for instance, that old, that one, the one about there's a hole in my bucket. At Christmas time you sing the 12 days of Christmas, that type of thing. But there's also a few songs that exist that kind of all fit together in one sort of, what the modern audience would call a mashup. We don't call it that, but do you know the song Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. And you know, oh, when the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go marching in, I wanna be that summer, when the saints go marching in, and you know, she'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round the mountain, coming round the mountain, coming round the mountain when she comes. Singing, singing, aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Singing, aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Singing, aye, aye, yippee, aye, aye, yippee, aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Yeah. Swing low as your sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry on with that. Slow saints, that's the one, go marching in, or when the saints come and carry me home. Swing home, sweet chariot, when the saints come. Carry on with that one. She'll be coming round when she comes. She'll be coming round when she comes. Everyone, aye, aye, yippee, singing aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Singing aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Singing aye, aye, yippee, aye, aye, yippee, aye, aye, yippee. Then back to your songs. Swing low, go marching in. Have a she'll be coming round the mountain, coming round the mountain, coming round the mountain when she's singing, singing aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Singing aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Singing aye, aye, yippee, big finish, aye, aye, yippee. Aye, aye, yippee, yippee, thank you. Apologies, it was quite a whistle-stop tour of the type of thing we do. But yeah, music4wellbeing.org.uk if you're interested. There's groups running all over Kent. Thanks for having me.